Hi, if you're watching this message right now, it means that you're about to watch between episodes 1 and 23 of my show, Conversations with Atul. Please note that when you'll be watching these first 23 episodes, you will just see a picture of me and a picture of the guest on your screen. That is because the first 23 episodes we never recorded live video. These were audio only episodes meant for Spotify. So what happened was, when I shifted my show to YouTube and started recording video, I felt that my audience should also listen to these first fantastic 23 episodes with some amazing people, great anecdotes, inspiring lives. Like Mukhtar Bhai, who runs a carom club in Thane for the last 35 years. The amazing voiceover artist Nikhil Kapoor. The orchestra man Sudhir Sinha, or the whistler Nagesh Surve. I wanted you to be a part of this experience. One little thing that you will see this message that I've recorded right now before each of the 23 episodes of Conversations with Atul. So, enjoy the conversations and welcome to Conversations with Atul.
Conversations with Atul.
In the first of this three-part episode on trying to understand autism in children, Deepti Deshpande helps us make the difference between being neuro-typical and neuro-diverse. She explains the benefit of a joint family for autistic children and how the word retardation needs to be used more sensitively. So please welcome Deepti Deshpande, a mother who has passed through her own journey of dealing with her child's autism, and in the first part of this 3-episode conversation, talks of a childhood spent in the lovely state of Jammu and Kashmir, her love for horse riding, a fairy tale marriage, and how she identified autism in her firstborn. Hi, I'm Atul Daishete, and welcome to my podcast, Conversations with Atul. But before we begin, here is a small message on a book I have written, which can help you to write screenplays, novels, and much more. Have you ever watched a film or a series or read a novel and felt, I can write better than this? Except you didn't really know how to. But now you can try your hand at writing screenplays, web series, or novels with a little help from my book called Anybody Can Write a Film. Devoid of film jargon and loaded with examples from popular films, my book simplifies the process to write films, series, or even a novel. Available on Amazon worldwide under the title Anybody Can Write a Film, Demystifying the Screenwriting Process by Atul Daishete. Visit Amazon.in to buy the book in India and Amazon in your respective countries to buy the Kindle version. Anybody can write a film. Now with my book, anybody actually can. Hello and welcome to Conversations with Atul. And we have a very special guest today. Her name is Deepti Deshpande. And think about which I wanted to do for a long time is to this one, because we hear all the time nowadays, which we didn't hear about 30-40 years back, that a child is autistic, which this was information which was, other things were happening and we were not really identifying the child as autistic or as autism at that point in time. I think in the last 20-30 years that has specifically changed, and as medicinal science has started putting it on a spectrum as to how children are. Autistic children are. So we have a very special guest. Her name is Deepti, and she has passed through this with her own son. And the whole episode is about how she has coped as a family, how it has changed her, and all that. And hello, Deepti. So nice to have you. Was my introduction okay? Or if you can correct me on things because you passed through it better. You passed through it, so you know better.
Yeah. Hi. The introduction could have been a little different bit.
So please go ahead. How would the introduction have been?
Because I would rather say that autism has been there for a very long time as a disorder.
Right.
And we call it a disorder now, or we call it more of a disorder that we call it neuro-diverse condition of a person who's not neurotypical the way we are neurotypical. So neurotypical are people like you and I, who do all the regular things, and neurodiverse are people who are just genetically wired differently in their brain, because of which their behavior, their speech, their mannerisms may get affected. The social interactions may get affected. But nowadays we call them neurodiverse because when we talk about diversity as a word, it says that difference. There's a difference, and we all are different in certain ways. And these people are different from us in myriad ways, and each one again within that category is different from one another.
Right.
So maybe that's a little confusing or very complex the way I said it. But what I'm trying to say that this is something which has been there for a very long time. But I feel in the olden times, maybe a generation before or 2 generations back, in India, there was more of a joint family system and a lot of children. So a lot of these things got automatically arrested in a way that these kids learned a few things because of the discipline that was there in the house or by emulating their cousins. And at times it was just shrugged off saying that this child is a little maybe not as smart as the other, but he will do something. So yeah, that was a time this did not have a name. These conditions did not have a name. And autism is just one of the conditions. When we talk about a neurodiverse condition, there are so many of them. You have dystonia, you have dysgraphia, you have dyscalculia. Then you have some serious problems which kids can have, like retardation and palsy and Down syndrome. And these slowly started coming to light the moment the awareness was built around them. And I think it's just in the past 10 to 15 years must have been that there's more of this spread of information amongst people about what are the things that can affect children.
So all this comes under the family of neurodiverse.
Yes, absolutely.
But not necessarily under the family of autism. I mean,
No.
autism and neurodiverse, uske niche autism hoga, there will be retardation, there will be Down syndrome, there will be, am I right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Because earlier we used to call, I think, everything as retardation, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. I remember using this word. I mean,
Yeah.
and I feel
Or
pretty
the simple
guilty about
word
it now.
people
but
were mental hai, ya
Mental
pagal
hai,
hai.
pagal hai.
I mean,
Right.
these were labels the society gave to kids because they could not understand. So yes, ideally this shouldn't have been done, but I don't even blame those people because they were never made aware of these things. So yes, but then it so happened that child became an outcast kind of, either from the class because the teacher could not understand what was wrong, or the relatives could not understand what the child was doing or why he was behaving in a funny way or a weird way or a way which is not socially acceptable. So these things did impact those children psychologically also, socially also, for a very long time to come, even when they grew up. And they had nothing, they had no other recourse but to cope with it the way they could.
I think this specific thing which you're saying, I was where it is about using the right words to define something. I have this small experience of which I've had is because I was studying in Paris. I had a scholarship in Paris to learn filmmaking with this film school called La Femis. And in Paris, you see a lot of beggars, like what we call them are beggars on the streets. And in Paris, they used to call them beggars, and there's a word in French for that. But after some time, they decided to not to call them beggars because they said that's a wrong way of addressing somebody. So they started calling them SDF. SDF is sans domicile fixe, which means that without fixed domicile.
Right.
So even if they're begging and they're on the streets and they're homeless, so the homeless were called as sans domicile fixe.
Right.
Like in the US also, nobody calls them beggars, they call them homeless.
Yes.
I think a simple thing like that changes. And when I heard it for the first time, being me, or maybe because we come from a certain culture,
Yes.
I must have laughed at it, I'm sure, and I must have said, kya usse kya farak padta? Maybe not laughed at it, but been extremely like casual about it and said, isse kya farak padta? But over the years, it has seeped into me, and I've realized that yes, I mean, it makes a difference how you address somebody within a certain, I mean, it also changes the way you look at that person. That boss, wo bhik nahi mang raha hai, he doesn't have a home, so what choice does he have? So you're going like 2 levels above that to understand that person.
Correct.
And then come to, maybe that is why he is begging, or he or she are begging.
Yes.
That is because they don't have the same kind of privileges that you have.
Absolutely.
Or I have, and that's why there's no choice. I mean, ya to raste pe, like if you see beggar streets on the, like kids on the at traffic signals, it's because they don't have a house. They don't have a house. They don't have a, that itself gives you like hundreds of different issues which you can't really solve. I mean, just something which I think just in terms of, because we discussed this whole thing like how everything was called as retardation
Yes.
about hardly 20-30 years back, and I think all of us have used those words.
Yes.
And then now it's like it's more specific. It's because it has been identified as a specific trait, and okay, now this is not what it is. This is autism, or this is
Yes.
Down syndrome, or this is
Yes.
this is retardation. So this is there is a big difference in everything that is there. Maybe there's a small nuance which all of us need to understand. Our children or whatever our children better, and then it can be cured or it can be addressed the right way. So what we'll do is, instead of this is just an introduction to it, but I always say that my podcast is a audio documentary on a person. So this is more than, I mean, it's about autism and it's about how you cope, but it's more an audio documentary on the Deepti Deshpande, and how what it is about. So let's go a little back. Like, let's go to who your grandparents were and what your family was about. Because if I'm not mistaken, you come from IAS, or you come from a bureaucratic
Yes,
family.
yes, yes.
So you've seen almost a lot of the country just traveling around.
Yes.
So you're like an army kid, if I'm not mistaken.
Army kid, and yet not an army kid.
But technically,
Yes.
all the flaws and all the privileges of the army kid and all the benefits are all there with you. That's
Right.
how it is.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so can you just quickly tell us about your family and a little about your parents and where they come from and all?
My father belongs to Akola. Akola is
Yeah,
is in, of
it's
course,
in
in
Maharashtra,
Maharashtra. And he came from a very modest background, and he studied really hard and very sincerely. And as he grew up,
What did your grandparents do? I mean,
my grandparents,
from your
from
mother's side, from your father's side, both.
my father's and my father's father, my grandfather, he was a principal in a school in Akola. While my grandmother, she ran a school at home, and she would use the door as a blackboard and teach children
Oh, really?
at home. So that was a very modest background they came from. My father,
But what made her do this? I mean, what was
she wanted to educate kids. She wanted.
She was kind of a, was it a kind of a socially conscious, or what? Or she was,
Yeah,
it was just for everybody, or it was
It was
general?
for everybody. It was
There
for
was no
everybody.
caste distinction,
There was no
nothing?
distinction. There were just kids coming.
And this was in the-
What you called as a balwadi during
Right,
those times.
right.
So she was running a balwadi at that time.
In Akola?
At home at Akola, and she raised three children. Me, my father, my kaka, and my atya. I mean, my uncle and my father's sister, my paternal aunt. And when my father.
What was your? I mean, what was your grandmother's background that made her, this socially conscious to do something like this? Because I think you're talking about a time when this was not really very common for for a woman to first thing is to be a woman, and then to go and teach,
I think the fact that she was able to teach her children very well at home. And that is where it led to the neighbors saying that, why don't you teach our children as well? And that's how she started doing that. So that's from my father's side. And coming to my mother's side, my mother's mother, my other grandmother, was again a teacher. She was a MA in English and Sanskrit. And she was teaching in a school in Nagpur. And my my grandfather was a professor in arts. Plus he was an artist. So he was also working in Nagpur.
What kind of an artist?
Like he used to paint.
He's a painter.
He was a painter. He used to do sketches. He would do caricatures, landscapes, portraits, and he would also teach.
So you still have those paintings? I mean, somewhere.
Oh yes, we do. He's painted a very famous nun who was there in one of the convents in Nagpur. And he was also part of the garden club, and he used to grow roses, and he was fond of gardening. And we had these fruit trees in his compound. We had vegetables growing. We had fruits growing. So yes.
What was his name?
He was Mr. P.N. Pendarkar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's a known painter. I mean, as in.
No, he's not known as in known, but yes, he was quite known for his work within Nagpur, and he was, of course, the professor of arts. He's taught a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your father's background was like, he studied hard, and that's what you were telling me.
I was telling about my father.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had a very small house with a tin roof. There was no fan, right? He did not have any footwear till the age of 15, I think. Till the time he was in grade 10, he had no footwear. And he's really worked really hard to become what he did when he grew up. And He initially got through railway services, but his uncle encouraged him to sit for the civil services exams, which he cleared, and then he got into IAS.
And then what was he just? Where was he posted? In IAS is in
so
what?
IAS, and then of course he went for his training to Mussoorie, to the LBS Academy of Administration. Post that he was allocated the Jammu Kashmir cadre.
Okay.
That's how he was in Jammu Kashmir, and in Nagpur he happened to see my mother at the hospital. My mother is a gynecologist, so and he'd gone for some kind of treatment. He saw her, he really liked her, and then he came back. He told his parents, and then somehow they figured out somebody who knew them, and then they went and talked to them, and that's how my parents met. They got married.
Oh. But a gynecologist,
Yeah, my mom is a gynecologist.
So you really need to find out what was it that your father went for that he went.
No, he had gone for some foot injury to some other department, but he happened to see her.
Baapre. So this used to happen a lot earlier.
I guess so.
And that's how it was. And what's your story? I mean, and then he was all over the country, or where was he?
No, he was primarily posted in Jammu Kashmir. So in many places in Jammu and Kashmir, including Jammu, Kathua, Riyasi, Anantnag, Leh,
Okay.
Kargil. So I have been to all these places. But I was really young. I was just 2.5, 3 when my parents had left me at Nagpur with my Aji Azoba, my mom's parents, because the weather there was very
Both were
extreme,
working.
very extreme, and they were working. Yes, and there were times when my mother would be summoned right in the middle of the night to do a cesarean in torchlight because there would be no electricity, and she would have a ready reckoner of words in Urdu so that she could converse with the patients. And she would deliver babies right in the middle of the night in frigid temperatures, in torchlight.
And snow, I mean, so you have
And
to
snow,
go through
yes.
that snow.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
So, yeah, but yes, but I've spent most of my growing up years in Jammu Kashmir. So I have stayed in most of these places. I was too young, but then I have studied in Jammu. I've studied in Kathua, where my father was posted as DC that time, and I've been to Leh also, of course.
DC is Deputy Commissioner.
Deputy Commissioner that
Okay.
time.
Of police, I mean, or
No, Deputy Commissioner as a district collector.
as a district collector.
District
Right.
collector.
DC, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So district collector.
So what are your memories of, and when did you leave Kashmir and when did he finish with his service?
Yeah, he finished with his service in. So I got married in 2006. He finished with his service in 2008, I believe. 2008, 2009.
So you were in Kashmir till what time?
I was in Kashmir till I was in grade 6. Post that, my father was posted to Mussoorie.
Okay.
Yeah. He was there on deputation at the LBS Academy of
Okay.
Administration.
So that is in what year? Like
That was when I joined in grade 7, would be around 87.
87.
I guess.
That is when it started getting troublesome around that time, right? in
Yeah,
Kashmir?
yeah.
So
But we were in Mussoorie.
Yeah.
And my.
No, that is it. In the 80s, it's when it started getting troublesome in Kashmir. That's what they say.
Yes.
So what are your memories of your childhood in Kashmir?
Memories of growing up. I went to some not very clear memories, but I still remember that my father was driving this Jeep called a Jonga, and I was lying down on the back seat and this door opened and I was about to fall off. Miraculously, I didn't. The car behind honked, my father stopped. And I remember.
How old were you?
I was just, 3.5, 4 perhaps. I mean, I have this memory that I was about to fall off. Then I have a memory of when my father took me near Jhelum River and he picked up this pebble which looked actually like a chocolate, and I thought it was chocolate and I was about to bite into it when my father stopped me. And then there was these small picnics when me and my parents, we used to climb up a hill nearby, and we used to lie down on a rug and just look at the clouds and make images in those clouds. So there was it was such a picturesque landscape. Ladakh Leh is so beautiful, Very stark, of course, and very opposite to what Kerala is, for example.
Yeah.
But it has a beauty of its own. It's got amazing beauty.
I think your grandfather would have painted some really nice.
He has. In fact,
Oh, really?
he has. Oh, yes, he has. He has, definitely. So then I had memories of all these sentries in our compound, and I used to be really scared of them and their guns.
But was it scary
So-
at that point in time to be serving in
I
J&K?
think it was just that because my father was that time. I think I'm talking about Riyasi here now, and in Riyasi or perhaps Kargil. So they were supposed to have these guards
Yeah.
there. So I was not used to seeing all that, right? Because I was in Nagpur for a couple of years, and I would just go there for my vacations to meet my parents. And that time there was no telephone, there was no communication
Right.
as the way we have today. So you used to have this inland letters, you know.
Yes,
So
yes,
my
blue
parents,
colored-
yeah. So
blue
my
colored.
parents used to write a letter to my grandmother asking
Send her.
about me. It would come after some days, and my grandmother would pen down a long letter back to my parents. So that's how it was.
So how long were you there in Nagpur? I mean,
I did my nursery and my lower KG and senior KG there.
it's almost 3 years. You
3
were there.
years I was there. So my parents used to visit on and off, but that was rare. And I remember the first time when my mom left me, that's what she tells me, that she was waving at me. I was happily waving back, and she was crying while I was smiling. So, yeah.
But you have, I mean, but it's a strange age to be with. I think it was very common to be staying with grandparents at that point in
Yes. And boy, was I so fond of my grandma. I mean, I have very fond memories of my grandmother, because one of my father's mother, she taught me a lot of Ram Raksha and shloks and all that. And this grandmother, she used to tell me stories, and the kind of stories she would just make spontaneously. You give her any theme, she would make
She
that.
was the teacher, right?
Yeah,
Who
she was
to
a
teach
teacher.
him. So she had that craft.
Yeah, and I have these memories of sleeping on the terrace, sleeping in the garden, which we
Nagpur.
yes, in summers.
And then why did you? Then you went to Jammu and Kashmir. You studied
Yeah,
in-
then in grade one, then my father was posted in Jammu. That's where then I went there and started living with them.
But then you must have gone to a kind of a bureaucratic school, like an army
I went
school.
no,
or-
I went to a presentation convent in Gandhinagar. That's an area in Jammu. I was in a convent school there.
Okay, which is like a normal convent.
Yeah, I studied there. Then we shifted to Kathua. And that is where I initially joined army school. Post that, then it was Kendriya Vidyalaya, then again it was back to Jammu. So we kept moving. I changed a lot of schools, and I realized I wasn't really very comfortable with changing schools, because I lost track of a lot of friends in the process. There was no way I could keep in touch. But every place, I think, was very nice to stay in, honestly. I had a lot of fun.
Tell me about this, because I have always heard stuff about army school, कि army brats, and I mean these are very common terminologies that I've heard.
In that era, I don't think there was.
No.
something
I'm saying that these are
that.
things which one keeps on hearing. Whether
Ah.
it's like somebody said that, sorry, army. Oh, I it made no sense to the kid, because when I was in the bank, I think there were quite a few army kids, and they're all very well behaved and extremely nice. I mean, all of them were actually, without exception. And I've heard this term like being used loosely. Or generally, what is the difference between, say, because you even went to a normal convent,
Yeah.
and you even went to a Kendriya Vidyalaya,
Yeah,
and
yes.
then you even went to an army school.
Yes.
So, what is the difference between these schools? Like, how would did you see a difference in
No,
terms
so
of?
I would say if you talk about a kid who comes from a bureaucratic background and an RB background, vis-a-vis a child who doesn't come from one,
Acha,
the
that is
only
the difference.
difference is that you have people running around doing things for you, which you don't have to do yourself, right? Like when my husband was growing up, he was 8 and he would go to that bhaji market and buy vegetables for the whole house and all that. I never had to go buy vegetables, right? I never had to go and pay the electricity bill. We had people doing this for us. We always had huge bungalows and a huge perimeter around it, and we had everything at our disposal. So that's the difference.
No, but within the school, was
Yeah.
there a difference between these three schools in the time of students that were there, or in
Not really.
Not really.
I
In the
don't
time of
think so.
education, not at all.
No. Well, in convent school, there was a lot of emphasis on speaking in English, yes. And like a typical Catholic convent school, there are your prayers and your manners and your etiquettes and a lot of polishing on that aspect, on those aspects. Kendriya Vidyalaya, I think being in a Kendriya Vidyalaya, what it taught me was that Hindi is also such a lovely language and you can learn in it, I mean, Today, my younger one cannot really write a passage in Hindi if I were to ask him. But thanks to my grandmother, who was a teacher, my mother's mother, my grammar never faltered, be it English, Hindi, or Sanskrit. And I studied Bhugol, I studied Itihas, right? It was just for 2 years, but we studied quite a few subjects in Hindi in Kendriya Vidyalaya.
That is the difference.
Yes, that's a difference. Convents, there's a lot of emphasis on speaking in English all the time, literature, grammar, English as a language. There's a lot of emphasis, mannerisms.
Nowadays, I think like when we were in, I've stayed in like this entire interior Thana. So I've been born and brought up in that that was kind of an area.
Right.
So I think when I went to like business school in town, and there it was like all मतलब कुछ लोग आते थे वहाँ पे who were from South Bombay and all that. They couldn't speak Hindi. Now I think that almost everybody's become like South Bombay. I mean the upper class kids in this country, it's become like that.
Sadly.
Yeah, that's what it has become. So you were what do you remember any friends or do you remember any time?
Yes. We still have a lot of friends in Jammu. There's this particular family called the Gupta family, which was a huge joint family staying in a very big house, and there were numerous weekends where I've stayed, gone there for night overs and sleepovers, and we had a lot of fun. And those are friends I've still been in touch with because those were people we knew, everybody in their family, right from the matriarch of the house to all the children, the parents, everyone, all the
But
cousins.
your peers, like your age, they were also like generally bureaucratic kids? Or
No, they were not bureaucratic kids. They were non-bureaucratic kids.
So they were from across all stratas?
Yes.
In a convent like that like they would be in a convent?
Yes.
So were you able to be in touch with them or?
We are still in touch with them. We are still in touch
maybe
with
because
them.
of
Not that
WhatsApp and-
actively, but of course we are in touch with them.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what happened? Then you finished your grade 10 or something in
No, then we shifted to Mussoorie.
Okay.
And I was in this, again, it's a kind of a heritage school. It's almost, well, it was founded in 1835, so you do the maths. So it's more than 150 years old.
What is
It's
the
called
name?
CJM Waverley, Convent of Jesus and Mary Waverley.
Okay.
It sits on top of a hill. It's near LBS Academy.
It's a boarding
And-
school?
It's both. It's boarding as well as day scholars.
Okay.
So I was a day scholar since my father was posted there. And we used to trudge up 1.5, 2 kilometers every day with a bag full of books up the hill. And then once the gate came, inside the gate, again around half a kilometer, quite a steep climb actually to the school. And the day we were late, obviously we had to huff and puff and go. But the best part is I attribute that to my stamina and fitness. In those
Right.
growing years, it really added to my stamina and fitness
Right.
for even my later years to come. Because my father made it a point never to drop us by car, no matter how late we got, whether it was raining, snowing, whatever. They say, you have to go, you have to go. You have to take your bag of books and you have to go. And that was a beautiful path winding up the hill, with a lot of langurs on the trees and a beautiful landscape right in front of you with snow-capped peaks, receding in the background. Yeah, very beautiful landscape.
So you still have that vivid
Oh
memory
yeah,
in your
I have
head.
been a mountain girl throughout. I've really missed the mountains. I have always been in the mountains.
Okay. So what, and then what? After you were there for
So
like
I was there till grade 10th.
Okay.
And after that, I was supposed to, I actually got admission in St. Bede's school in Shimla. And I chickened out at the last moment because the lure of going to Nagpur and staying with my grandparents again was much greater than going to a boarding school. And I then ended up going to this college called LAD College, Lady Amritbai Daga College in Nagpur.
Oh, so you shifted to Nagpur?
Yeah, just for 2 years. My father was told categorically not to bring his family to Kashmir because that time there was a lot of insurgency.
Okay.
In fact, every day the driver used to take a different route to the secretariat. So my father would be in Jammu for 6 months and he would be in Srinagar for 6 months. After Mussoorie, I'm talking about after Mussoorie. So because there's something what you call as darbar change, the secretariat sits in Srinagar in summers and winters it is in Jammu.
Okay.
That's how it is.
So has your father ever had any close calls, with, or anything?
Not really as such, but he was his name was on one of the hit lists as far as I remember, long back. That list came out much later. But they had to be very, very careful. They had to have armed guards, like a small convoy. Not a convoy, but a jeep following or leading in the front with bodyguards and stuff while in Srinagar.
So even you had to have that kind of security whenever you went
If
there?
we were traveling together, yes.
Okay. Otherwise, no. I mean,
No.
So you could
Not in Mussoorie, for instance. It was only in Kashmir.
So when you went to Kashmir to meet your parents during that time, was it different or was it? I mean, what did
No, my
what did-
father used to come down to Jammu
Okay,
at that
okay.
time.
You
but
didn't
then-
go too much.
No, no. But then I was in Nagpur at that point of time.
So your teenage years were in Nagpur. I mean, the real years from 16, college years. So
College.
that time that was college. I think most people don't realize.
After 12th, then I again came to Delhi because then my father was at Udyog Bhavan.
Okay.
He was there with the central government for a while.
Okay.
And that time I was in Gargi College, South Bombay.
I know,
South
yeah.
Delhi, sorry.
Right.
I was there. I did my BCom.
Okay.
Not knowing why I did my BCom, but I did my BCom. That seemed like a choice while we were discussing with our friends, and most of them were taking commerce. So I believed I wanted to do that. I was this close to taking up psychology, which I should have had because finally, just recently, I dabbled in that also.
Okay.
So I did my BCom.
And the kind
from
of
there.
things that have happened in your life, I think psychology would have been far more useful.
Yes. I did my BCom from there. Then I had my MBA in HR from Delhi again.
Okay.
And post that I was working with GE.
GE, okay.
Yeah,
General Electric.
GE Capital International Services.
GE
That
Cap,
time,
okay.
Everybody was big on outsourcing and call centers. So I got into recruitment. And
Which is you've done it in HR.
yeah.
Okay.
So I was into recruitment team, and we had this because these call center floors were like the size of almost a soccer field, with 800 callers sitting on one floor, and there was a lot of attrition level at that time.
Right.
Because these all were youngsters coming for
Right.
just a part-time stint after their grade 10th or 12th, and the lure of going abroad for a 1 month training to US at the cost of the company while going out, coming back and earning some pocket money
Right.
was very, very tempting for most of them. So the attrition level was high. So we always were in the hiring mode.
And it's also demand was very high then. So like 3,000 koi extra de rahe to people were shifting. That was also
Absolutely.
happening.
Yeah. There was a lot of...
Because there's no real job satisfaction in these jobs. It's all
No.
about wohi jagah kahin aur karna hai.
True.
So that is how it was. So tell me a little about your 11, like when you're 16 and 17 in Nagpur, because it's very different from being 3 to 5. And so how was it? How was...
I think when I was
Was
in
it
school,
was it a college or was it a school?
it was a junior college, 11th, 12th was
No,
a
because
junior
what
college.
people, this is, I just want to explain this is that what I want to explain is what people don't understand is that what children today wouldn't understand at all is that we went to college when we were in 11th and 12th.
Yeah.
Now they go to school when they are in 11th and 12th.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
No, but I have a feeling that it differed from place to place.
Oh, really?
For example, there were certain schools in Mussoorie also, like Woodstock, which had classes going right up till grade 12th.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Quite a few of them. So it's just because in Nagpur this was a system that 11th and 12th in LED college was a
College.
junior college.
Junior
college. So we took pride in saying that
No,
we
because
went to
there's more
college.
freedom when you're in college.
Yes.
Like
No uniform,
yeah.
for instance.
No uniform, you can have like 70%, 60% attendance.
Yes.
You got a choice of skipping 30% classes.
Though I think I was too sincere to bunk. I wish I had.
Yeah. So, but it was a general thing. I mean, it's nothing
Yeah.
exceptional that you
Yeah.
remember.
Nothing.
But then you went to Delhi because I have worked in Delhi.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to work with AB Namro Bank back then.
Okay.
So I'm saying that it's like a completely different, it's a culture shock generally. For someone who comes from Bombay particularly, I thought Delhi was a culture shock for me in weird ways.
I think because I was in the north all the time. See,
Right.
I was never in Maharashtra. I used my memories of Maharashtra is all about going in summer vacations to my
Nagpur.
grandfather's place,
Yeah.
reading all the Phantom, Mandrake, DC comics, a huge stack of comics, eating mangoes right from the garden, sitting in front of the cooler, chilling out, playing cards and all that, and meeting cousins and all the relatives.
So Maharashtra was a hill station for you.
Yeah, actually, but we had winter vacations. We used to have winter vacations usually
Yeah.
when we were in Mussoorie. Otherwise, we went there for summer vacations also. But what I'm saying that because I was always in the north, so I always had a lot of friends who were from the Punjabi culture, the Dogris, the Punjabis,
Right.
from the UP. So for me, Delhi did not come as a culturally
Big surprise.
very, very different place, really.
But it's a more aggressive culture, no, in Delhi,
It's
no?
extremely aggressive.
Compared
Of
to,
course.
say, the rest of the north. That's my...
Yeah, absolutely. And also because there's a lot of influx of people from Ghaziabad and Faridabad, I think, Gurgaon, the NCR region also. But there was a time we never thought Delhi would be so unsafe. So I had a German Shepherd at that time, and we were staying in a very nice elite area again.
Where were you staying?
We were staying in Asiad Village.
Okay.
Now, the Asian Games Village was created when the Asian Games happened in 1982, and they had made these beautiful duplex apartments for all these players to come in, and it's right next to City Fort Auditorium and the City Fort Club. So we had access to the City Fort Club where we would go for swimming and all the sports and stuff.
Now, I've been to City Fort a lot. So, I mean,
Right.
there used
So
to
we
be
were
this,
right there,
what
and-
is it? The driving range. There's a driving range there.
Yes,
actually.
yes, there is.
For golf.
Yes,
so
yes,
it's-
yes,
I mean,
yes, yes.
We're like
Right, next to the
bankers,
swimming
so we used to
pool.
have this fake thing कि जाके golf करो कभी life में कुछ किया नहीं golf कर रहे हैं. That was pretty stupid. I think of it. But yeah, I mean, but Delhi you felt was unsafe as compared to, say, I mean,
Delhi, I realized it was unsafe only after, when I was working with GE. In GE, I was working in Gurgaon, and there were times that we would get really very late in the night while coming back, and they had these vehicles who would drop every employee home. And that time we were told very specifically that which is that highway NH7, which joins Gurgaon to Delhi, is not
Right.
really very safe. So we used to always have an armed guard with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially if it had a lady who was going to be dropped the last. So that was a rule. Or if there was not going to be a guard, then the second person who's the person who's the guy who's going to be dropped, he'll be dropped the last.
Last.
And that way. And then there were a lot of these incidents which kept cropping up in newspaper here and there. But like in Asiad Village was like a township, right? And I would be walking with my dog and I would not be scared of anything. Like it was a ferocious German Shepherd.
no, I have, because I was there and I had a girlfriend back then, and I remember this, which was the first time that I thought that ये Delhi के बारे में जो बोलते हैं, is because I was in South X and we're standing in the middle, like that दोनों तरफ, there are roads on both sides,
Right,
I'm standing in the
yeah.
middle,
Part one and part two.
someone would just छेड़ के ऐसे चले जाता था train, which never happens in Bombay. When you're not used to this in Bombay at all, गाड़ी में आके छेड़ के just teasing
I have
you and going
experiences
away,
in Delhi. I have
which
experiences
is like
in
very
Delhi.
strange for somebody who comes from Bombay. I don't know about,
Yeah.
And I'm sure it doesn't happen in a lot of the country, and it happens
For
in Delhi.
example, I've heard Chennai is the safest city today.
Yeah.
Even safer than Mumbai is what I hear.
Bombay, I think there are just too many people for you to do anything, because
Right.
it's like कोई पकड़ के धो देगा तुमको. That's the only reason I think it's safe. Otherwise, human behavior, I doubt, would be very different anywhere. But and then you were you were 3 years in Gargi College.
I was in the, of course. Yeah, first, second, and third year, yes.
So you liked it? I mean, your college in Delhi? Or what
I
was it?
liked it, but I really missed Mussoorie. I think Mussoorie was this phenomenal place I associate with that growing up years, So wake up at 5:30, go for horse riding. I had the privilege of learning horse riding for 6 years in Mussoorie,
Oh my God.
along with the probationers, along with those triple jumps and galloping.
You can
and
do all that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh really?
Yes.
Wow.
Proudly so. I really enjoyed horse riding. I did a lot of skating in Jammu. I did horse riding, a lot of river rafting, trekking while in Mussoorie with all the probationers. So yes, that's a privilege you get as the kid of a bureaucratic, person. Yes, definitely.
Tell us about the horse as an animal,
Yeah.
because we don't really, I mean, we know what we read and what we see in films, but tell us, because you have interacted so
Yeah,
closely
yeah,
with
yeah,
horses.
yeah,
Tell
yeah.
us about a horse as an animal. What kind of an animal is it?
It's a very, very.
And what
tame
would
and,
be a mix of, or is it like, I mean, horses also seem very aloof at some point. They also
I
seem
don't
very.
know. I had my favorite horse who was Kalyani. She was a mare, and I was so fond of her. She would recognize. I would be so crazy about it. I would wake up in the morning and take this big chunk of jaggery with me, because horses love to eat jaggery. And I used to walk up and then go down to the stables. And then, with that size, we used to come to the riding ground, because I wanted to make sure nobody else rides there apart from me. That's why the motivation to go there and fetch her myself. So she would actually, I think horses are very compassionate that way. They're loving when they get to know you. And also very docile. But of course, they are tamed. These are trained and tamed, of course. And the trainer who used to come, I don't remember his name, but he used to be at the Delhi race course, Prime Minister's race course. So he was specially called from there to train all the probationers. And a lot of us kids would love to, train with the probationers. I was very, very particular.
But what kind of an animal was it? I mean, like, what would you say? Is it a mix of what traits? What do you see in a horse? Because I generally see horses in films.
I thought it had a very calming effect. Calming, Okay. Of course, they won't respond the way dogs do. They won't jump over you, thankfully so. But yeah, they're calm. They're calm.
They're calm animals.
They're calm animals. They're calm animals. They follow. Once you lead them, they follow.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it? Because my memory of a horse, I was at Bhosla Military School for like 2 months, I think that 1 month or 2 month course
Where is
there.
this?
Some was in Nasik.
Oh, Nasik, yeah.
For 1 month, there's some summer course, 1 or 2 months, I forget now. So there they'll teach you horse riding. And if you get scared of that animal, I think senses it very strongly.
Senses
and they used to have this ranch kind of a thing where it's fenced, and there are 10 horses going behind each other.
Yeah.
And then sometimes a horse gets hit, and wo sab bhi hota tha. But one of the horses, I remember, there's this really fat guy was there with us, and he was a big bully, even otherwise there. But he was really scared of horses. And then what happened was that he slipped when he was on that horse, because you have to actually, that rhythm you need to catch.
Right.
Otherwise you will fall.
Yes. That is during trot, actually.
Trot.
That's during
so you
the
need
trot,
to catch that
yes.
rhythm. I think even riding a horse, you need to
Yes,
have
yes,
that rhythm.
yes.
You have to that rhythm needs to match of your body and the horse's body.
Yeah, the walk, the trot, the canter, everything.
Everything, your rhythm needs to match. So I don't think I ever got that thing that the rhythms need to match, or I need to try it. And he slipped off the horse, but he didn't fall. And his leg got stuck in the, what is that called? The stirrup?
The stirrup.
It got stuck in the stirrup. And the horse panicked. Horse panicked, and the horse started running around, round and round. And then, I don't know what these guys, they were also idiots, I think. They were trying to stop the horse by going in front of it or whatever they were trying to do. And the horse was panicking more, and I still have this memory of this guy being dragged.
Oh
my God, it was...
I have actually witnessed that happening to a probationer, in fact. He actually fell off and his foot was caught, but the instructor just went on his horse and caught hold of the horse's neck.
That is the right thing to do, I guess.
Yeah.
That is the way you can stop it. Otherwise, it won't stop. I mean, if you keep on, because they were just trying to stop it, and it's just something that suddenly came up. Okay. And then what? Then you did an MBA from...
I did it from Delhi again. Not from a very A-grade institute, but I did it from an institute called EMPI.
Okay.
And I majored in HR, and then, as I said, I went to GE.
Okay.
GE was again a very nice experience.
Okay.
Very nice experience. And after recruitment, I got into voice and accent training. So where we had to teach...
so this was a kind of a call center for, say, the US or somewhere?
US, UK, yeah. And they had all kind of services, including accounting, collections, then even they had something like T-Mobile and all those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, for those companies, for T-Mobile you had
basically. Even T-Mobile. Then even medical services, insurance. So yeah.
Right. So you were working there for how long? That is the only company you worked for?
No, I was there and I was working with another company after that. Again, I was there into hiring, but then I was more oriented towards training, I realized. Then I got into voice and accent training. So there was this venture started by Hero called Hero Mind. I don't know if you remember. They shut down later on, but what they were doing was they were training people to understand American accents, the UK accent, and in US has different accents. Like you have the Ebonics, you have the Southern drawl, you have the Midwestern accent, right? They all differ.
The US is, I think, almost 5 times India. I mean, as a country also in terms
Must be, yeah.
So obviously, in India we have so many accents. So obviously it's
But
learned
we
to be
were
good.
also supposed to correct their vernacular bias and also help them speak or emit sounds that they were not able to because of their vernacular bias or the state they belong to. For
Okay.
example, people from Orissa, of course, no offense, but then they say usually or usually. The j sound wouldn't come, right? So we really had to help them understand how the tongue should be placed within your mouth so that you are able to emit that sound. So I got trained to become a trainer, actually. That's
Yeah,
something
but
I
that's
did.
because like in Marathi we say "lo."
Yeah.
I mean most
Ra आपण
most
म्हणतो.
yeah
Most
most
people
Hindi
can't.
people
Unless
and
it's
even in
Tamil.
the
Tamil people say ra.
"lo," okay,
Yeah.
but they can't say "lo," they say "lo," and even in French because I've learned French.
Yeah.
And then the accents they call them accents. So
I know.
those accents are like there are 5 different kind of accents, and
Yes.
I had a friend who used to say it, and I was like I couldn't make out the difference what it is
But
because
I
it's a
think
nuance of a
French is
language which
beautiful
you can.
language, but the way you pronounce is not the way you spell it. Kamat
Exactly.
and comment Alice Woos. That's how it reads. So,
yeah. No, in French though there is a lot of, I mean, there are a lot of silence and
Yes,
silent
yes,
syllables
yes,
and all.
absolutely.
Yes, unlike where we are all phonetic. I mean, Hindi
Correct,
and
correct,
Sanskrit and all
correct,
phonetic.
correct.
So, so you're working there. Then what happened? I mean, what kind of a person were you becoming? I mean, I just wanted to. All these questions are because I just want to understand what kind of a person were you becoming. Like you come from a certain kind of a background, and you suddenly have this probably more freedom when you have in Delhi. You know, because Delhi is also a very I mean hep place in a
Yeah,
certain way
yes,
compared to because you came from Mussoorie, and
Yes,
obviously there's a huge
yes,
difference. It's a
yes,
big city.
yes.
And then you're working in GE, which is again a call center kind of a culture, which is also a very
Right.
hip and a very happening kind of a culture in terms of, I mean, weekends and all that. Or
Not
well,
only
at
that,
all.
we had all kind of privileges with GE. I mean, we were traveling so much for hiring people from different places. The usual suspect places were Jaipur, Ajmer, even Kolkata. So in Kolkata, if we would go, we would be staying in the Taj Bengal. You know, we would go to Park Hotel to the discotheque in the night. We would
Right.
party around after a whole day's work, and we had a lot of privilege. We had our own barista in G, for that matter.
Don't barista in GE.
We had food coming in from Taj every day. They used to cater. So yes, there was a lot of lure of all these things at that age, you know.
Wait,
And
what
people
year was
would-
this?
2001.
2001.
Yeah, 2001.
Okay. Wow. See, all these privileges.
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it was
So
fun.
what was the difference in your personality from, say, coming from Mussoorie to those 3, 5, 7 years that you were in Delhi? How long were you in Delhi?
Delhi was almost, let's say, till the time I got married in 2006.
So that
And say from 95.
so almost 11 years you were in Delhi.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So 11 plus the 3 years in college also, or that's counted?
No, that's counted. That's
So
counted.
11 years in Delhi.
Yeah.
My thing is that there was this must have been a huge difference in you as a person. That when you come from Mussoorie, you know, which is like even if you are in an army school and all that, but you're still it's a different because there's no reason to be the culture is very different. It's slightly more conservative, even otherwise, because it's a city. It's the kind of place that it is.
I'm not
And you
sure.
come-
Sorry, go ahead.
So if you come to a place from Mussoorie to Delhi, like there is this huge difference in the it's completely city. It's a very different world. You know. So what kind of were you changing as a person? You found that they found a because the freedom was different. I mean, obviously, I mean there must because you're alone. So what is it? Was there a
Alone as in?
you alone as you were staying alone, right? Or were
In
you-
Delhi?
Yeah.
No, my father was posted in Udyog Bhavan, I told you.
Oh,
I was never
yes,
in a
yes. So you're
boarding
staying with your
person.
family?
Yeah, I was staying with my family. In Asia
Okay.
Village, I told you.
Okay.
Remember?
Yeah, your father was in.
Yeah,
No,
but-
but there's still this whole cultural shift which is there from coming from a small town to a big city. So did that change you as a person? Were you
First of all, there wasn't much of a cultural shift. And I'll tell you why. Because the
Okay.
school that I was going to,
right?
the girls it was a all girls convent. All these girls came from Thailand. They came from different
Oh.
places. Okay, they came from Delhi. Many of them were from Delhi, and they came with that Delhi culture thing on their that crown on their head.
That halo.
And I was quite lost. Honestly, I was also bullied at one point of time, and I used to think they used to talk all kind of things which were really alien to me: waxing, threading, perming the hair, and this and that, and it was that way they.
So it was
a bit
not
of a
really.
snobbish culture, honestly speaking, in
Oh.
that school, and most of them were boarders, of course. from Thailand, Delhi. Not they were Mumbai girls also, but they were different.
So they were
But-
also upper class, I'm sure, because of the
Yes, yes. But anyway, that time the fee was not much. If I'm not wrong, it was just 3,000 a year.
But it would still be, you'd still
It was
need a
elite
certain.
school, but
yeah.
it was elite school because it was one of the
Oh.
really good schools.
So you already had that kind of, I mean, you had a
I had
taste
an
of what.
exposure. I
You
had
the
an exposure.
You had a taste of what it
I had
was.
an exposure. And you know what happens is that you do not try to be one of them, but you end up carrying some of those attributes unknowingly. You catch them on, you don't realize. So when I went to Nagpur, I remember these people were like, "Oh, you're from Delhi, right? You look like a Delite. You don't look like a Maharashtrian. You sound very Delite." So I couldn't really understand. And then I realized maybe they think I'm a snob, which I was not trying to be. But because I was speaking in English and they were mostly speaking in Marathi, and I would just naturally break into English because I was all the time speaking in English. So
Right.
oh my gosh, she's trying to show off, The perceptions are formed.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
perceptions are formed
Right.
unknowingly.
But whereas it's just you with your language. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
and
language
that's
you're
how we've
comfortable
been, and
with.
I've been in the north
Oh,
mostly,
didn't-
so it's always
I
been
never
Hindi
saw
and
it.
in English,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But if I have to speak in Marathi, I can speak good Marathi.
Yeah. But
Because at
when
home-
one is struggling with words, then one just tends to, end up.
I don't think I struggled with words also. See, that's what I'm
No,
trying
no,
to
but
get
it's a
to.
way of just being. It's a way of.
It's a way I have been
How you
all these
navigate
years.
language.
Yes, that's-
You're just
yeah.
like you will shift between languages smoothly. That's the difference, I guess, because it's easier for you to express yourself when you shift between languages smoothly. Like for me, that happens. Like I'll speak in Hindi and then I'll suddenly speak in,
Correct.
English. Like say a couple of sentences and come back to Hindi. So because that's how I navigate language. For
Yeah,
example.
I never did that. I never shifted really. I was speaking
Oh.
mostly in English. Then I realized what was
Shift,
going
but
on.
you used to speak mostly in English.
Yeah. So then I started speaking in just Marathi mostly.
Okay.
Till the time they realized me, they realized the person who I was, and then it was okay. When then they know who you are.
Right.
Then that that notion about you that this is a person maybe I can't associate with, that is kind of gone. That melts off. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were with G, and I mean, it was a kind of outgoing culture, right? I mean, when you were at G, you were become more outgoing.
That was the time when I tried my first alcoholic drink
Okay.
with my boss, who told me, "You go to a party, make sure nobody brings your drink. Don't leave your drink. Don't mix up your drinks and all that kind of thing." So she was like that mother hen, very protective. But yeah, well,
What was her name?
Meenakshi Dabral.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she taught you the ins and outs of.
But we had a lot of fun with her, and working was really a good experience with GE.
Okay.
It's very employee centric, and many ways. But yeah,
So how long were you with G?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay. Then you shifted to some.
I shifted to Hero Mind Mine. I was
that's
I was
what-
there for another 2-3 years,
Okay.
and then that's it.
Then you decided to get married.
I did not decide to get married. I always had this romantic notion of meeting the Mr. Right, and a very diehard romanticist. That never happened. My parents were obviously frantically looking for a suitable groom for me, and I kept rejecting every left, right, center. Ha, aisa hai to taisa hai karun. I don't want to get married. And then I think my Atya, my paternal aunt, she happened to see my husband's profile somewhere, and she met the family. She liked them. She called my mom. My mom called his mom. Then she said that he's going to be in Delhi. Can he call? So then he called me. He came home, and then that's how it began.
So you liked him instantly.
Yeah,
yeah?
seriously. I mean, that's so funny, right? That's not me at
So
all.
did you have anything against arranged marriages till that point in time, or was
I thought, how do you get to know a person so quickly and say a yes, right? So that was my entire premise. Plus, I had seen a couple of marriages going wrong among some
Right.
close friends. So that was something which had been a factor that put me off. But the first time the first thing was, oh, he's taller. He's taller to me. He's taller.
That's
That was one of the
That's a big tick.
qualifiers. Not that I'm like extraordinarily tall, but it just so happened that everybody
that
I
was
met
one of your considerations.
I just met my
Height.
height.
So you got married in what year? 2006.
2006, March 2006.
How was it going? I mean, you shifted to where? You shifted to Bombay? Or?
Yeah, we shifted to Mumbai.
Okay.
We shifted to Mumbai, and we were in Andheri for a while.
Okay.
Right opposite to the Andheri West Station, there's this Parsi society called Kama Society, right?
Right.
So we were there for year and a half. Soham was born almost very soon, just the next year. I got late. I got married quite late. I was 29 at that time.
Okay.
So my mother, being a gynaec, she was like, "Okay, don't just wait too long. Just plan a family." So.
Abhi to everything has changed. Now you can have a kid at 50 also.
Oh yeah.
The world has changed
Nowadays
completely.
all these celebrities are freezing their eggs, right? And
Yeah, so you can do it anytime.
surrogacy and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how were your initial, what did you, how were your initial marriage years like? I mean, before you had a kid, what was it like?
For me, it was a little traumatic coming to Mumbai. Let me be honest,
Wow.
because coming from places where we were living in this huge bungalows and houses and duplex apartments and a lot of open space, all I could see was crows and buildings outside the window. I was always used to seeing a garden or a cliff or a mountain, something, to do with nature. But this was like a small matchbox house. It was a very nice house, very well equipped, well furnished. I had everything, but then I didn't know what to do. And when I got pregnant, then there was a lot of morning sickness and the usual issues that women face initially. That's it. So for the first year was a little not that smooth for me, honestly.
But what did you think of him as a person as you started to discover? I mean, because it's arranged marriage, right? I mean, so, and I think.
No, so what happened that when he came and met me, I remember I took him for dinner to India Habitat Center.
Yeah.
Because that time he was staying near Khan Market on Shah Jahan Road. And I took him there and we spoke for 3 hours, and I really thought that he was the person I really would like to get to know more and explore the possibility of spending my entire life. Time actually flew, we talked about so many things, and it's been difficult for me to pinpoint about, if you ask me, what exactly did you like about him? Apart from his looks, of course, I liked his looks, but then that's just one part of it. I thought he was a great listener. And
which he is, huh? Because I've spent an hour with him.
Yes.
Which he is. So, yeah.
And I also thought that he had a great sense of humor. Plus, the way he talked so warmly about his sisters, about his parents, gave me insight about the kind of a family person he is, the kind of life he's lived, the kind of things he enjoys doing, the recreational activities that he enjoys, And I thought there was quite a commonality where it came to what my interests were, what his were, be it music, be it traveling, be it adventure sports, be it meeting people. So I saw a great deal of myself in terms of my interests in him. And that was something I definitely wanted to explore much further, So his parting words were, where do we go on from here? What do you think we should be going? What should we be doing next? What's your take on it? And I said, yeah, I think this is something I would want to explore further.
Okay.
That was one positive from
You didn't say, I don't want, तेरी शक्ल नहीं देखनी मुझे वापस.
शक्ल पसंद आई थी. So, yeah. So, and the overall personality demeanor, very warm.
And it stayed. I mean, after in the first year of marriage, you felt that this is the person.
Yeah. So what I saw is what I got. Is what I'm
Unlike
saying.
what you said earlier to me,
yes.
that in Delhi is
lot of the times there have been experiences with people that where
But
what you
only
see
in
is
Delhi
not
or
working.
everywhere? I mean, generally.
For me, mainly it was in Delhi because that was when I started working. That was when I
started
was
meeting
out
people.
on my own,
Right.
traveling on my own,
Yeah.
Not that sheltered when you're in a school, So, yes, that's something I saw a great deal.
And you were pregnant, you had a normal delivery.
I had a normal delivery.
So you thought there is nothing, no problem at all, nothing, no issue here.
No, nothing.
And what changed?
Post delivery.
Yeah.
So post delivery, we had a fantastic 1 year, or the first 2 years were like fantastic. They're fantastic now also. That's not how I mean, but Som was really as a mother, it might sound that I'm really talking about my child and saying all the things that a mother wants to speak, but he was really like a cherub, he was really very, very sweet, and he would attract a lot of attention from people. He had this beatific smile. So I think our life was really full. We were just so happy with everything that we had, honestly. Um, in fact, I remember the first time I felt his stomach, rising and falling against my stomach post delivery. And that was one of the best feelings, you know, of having another life that you have breathed life into, And also, I remember the first time he smiled at me knowingly, which was at 3 months. I remember that exact instance, in
What
Delhi.
was the instance? Tell us.
Instance was that he was in my lap and he just looked at me and smiled. It was like a knowing look, and you can make it out. So that is something that has always stayed with me. There are a lot of memories which I've had about him, and close to when he was around 1.5 years, I thought that there were certain things he was not doing, which a lot of kids at his age had already started doing. For example, responding when being called out to by the name, or playing meaningfully with objects or toys. I thought there was some difference. Initially, I thought it's just a phase, that every child has a different learning curve, a different growing curve. Sooner or later, it all pans out. But then, somewhere as days passed, I thought that gap was increasing, about what was happening in the outer world and what was happening with my child. The kind of developmental milestones he needed to achieve were not really in line. Initially, when we would take him for his vaccination schedule, for his vaccinations, the doctor did not pinpoint, because even the doctor wouldn't know at that time, because those symptoms were not really present, as in present. And then finally, when I saw that a lot of things that he would do, like just flapping his arms or walking on his toes, or if you would give him that dinky car like a Hot Wheel, he would spin the wheels instead of playing with it the way kids do. And he had started developing a fascination for anything that was spherical or round, be it the moon, be it the fan blades going round and round, anything which was a circular shaped object. He had this very strong fascination for these things. So he would just keep looking at these objects endlessly, or trying to take them in his hands and just twirling it in his hands, round and round and round. Later on, he developed a fascination for spoons. He would just hold spoons in his hands and keep running. But the point was, what alarmed me was that if I would call out to him, he would not look at me. He would be in his own world. It was as if he was thinking about something deeply. He wouldn't pay attention.
All the time, or
Most of the time. He wouldn't really respond.
Because he also smiled at you. You're saying that knowing
that was when he was 3 months, and this is when we jump to now when he was around a year and a half, which is like 15 months, 15 to between 15 to 18 months, somewhere between that period is when I realized that there was something amiss. And then a lot of kids have started babbling, saying some words like, mama, baba, dada, whatever. And he couldn't say anything. He could just make some sounds, but they wouldn't mean anything. So when I voiced this to Devan said that as a child, even he spoke pretty late. He spoke a little later than what other kids did. And even his sister's son, he spoke a little late. But that was also because they were in France for a while. And his French, English, Marathi, everything got garbled and mixed up at that point of time. But Devan was not convinced that there was something really wrong. He thought I was over-obsessing over it. I was over-intellectualizing this. And I had not really researched about these things at all. I had no clue that there was something called autism, or there was something called a neurological deficit or some deficiency that kids can have. So somewhere I had this urge to go and have him shown to a pediatrician, a developmental pediatrician or a neurologist. But Devan was vehemently against it. He thought it was not necessary. He said, I don't want them experimenting on my kid, he will just grow out fine. You just need to give it a little more time. And then I decided if he doesn't agree, I'll go by on my own. I'll take him wherever I need to take him and just have him shown, just to rest my doubts, put my doubts at rest. Um, Finally, when we went for one of his vaccination, uh, we saw this chart in the waiting area outside the pediatrician's office, which said, and there were these images along with it. It said, does your child flap his hands? Does he walk on his toes? Does he not call out when he
This
when
was
he responds?
specifically written.
Yes.
Specifically
yes.
written on
Does
that
he
chart.
have fascination for inappropriate objects? Inappropriate fascination or attachment to objects? Okay, is he non-verbal? Then please have him get checked for autism. And that's somewhere, the moment I saw, I really got a jolt and I got so scared, I can't tell you, because I thought it just met all the parameters that I was looking at all these days. And then when we went in for his vaccine, the first thing I told her, this is something I've seen. So please check him and tell me if this is what is wrong with my child. She said, okay, let me do a preliminary check. And she gave him his vaccine. And then she was interacting with him. And she said, you know what, Deepti, this could be a possibility, but I'm not 100% sure. So you need to go to a pediatric neurologist.
At what age was this?
This was around a little more than 2, but not 2.5 really. 2 years, around 2 years, let's say.
I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my conversation on trying to understand autism in children with Deepti Deshpande. I published the second of this 3-part important conversation on Friday next week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I drop a new episode every Friday night at around 10 p.m. I will also end this and every episode by recommending a film or a web series. But before that, here is a small message on how you can help to keep this podcast alive and growing. This episode is free and we intend to keep it that way. But it does take a lot of time, money and effort to produce the show. We research, write, record and edit before we finally present it to you. So if you wish to support our effort, you can help us produce the show by contributing any amount you wish on our website, conversationswithatul.com. Please note that the word conversations is plural with an S. So do visit conversationswithatul.com. And since we are talking about autism, here is my film record. The film I recommend today is the Barry Morrow and Ron Bass written and Barry Levinson directed film, Rain Man. A greedy Tom Cruise discovers that his father has left a sizable fortune for his autistic brother played by Dustin Hoffman. The film is about a forced road trip at the end of which the two brothers bond and end up changing each other's lives. Rain Man swept the Oscars with 8 wins, including Best Director, Best Actor and Best Picture. Rain Man rates a high 8.0 out of 10 on IMDb. Do watch if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter by following my Twitter handle Atul Taishete, spelled as ATULTAISHETE. Also, do visit my website Conversations, that is Conversations plural with an S. The complete website address is conversationswithatul.com. In the second of this 3-part episode on trying to understand autism in children, Deepti Deshpande converses about how she identified behavioral differences in her firstborn, her experience with occupational therapy, and why diagnosis and intervention in autistic children is crucial before the age of 6. So please welcome Deepti Deshpande, a mother who has passed through her own journey of dealing with her child's autism and who in the second part of this 3-episode conversation talks of how even well-educated families refuse to accept autism, where autism in a child is considered a woman's problem and how dealing with their son's autism has shaped her and her husband as parents. Hi, I'm Atul Taishete and welcome to my podcast, Conversations with Atul. But before we begin, here is a small message on a book I have written which can help you to write screenplays, novels and much more. Have you ever watched a film or a series or read a novel and felt, I can write better than this? Except you didn't really know how to. But now you can try your hand at writing screenplays, web series or novels with a little help from my book called Anybody Can Write a Film. Devoid of film jargon and loaded with examples from popular films, my book simplifies the process to write films, series or even a novel. Available on Amazon worldwide under the title Anybody Can Write a Film, Demystifying the Screenwriting Process by Atul Taishete. Visit Amazon.in to buy the book in India and Amazon in your respective countries to buy the Kindle version. Anybody can write a film. Now with my book, anybody actually can.
But Devin was still fighting it, right? I mean,
He was fighting it because he believed that even the doctor might be wrong and that we really needed to wait it out, we needed to be patient about it. But then finally we talked about it, and I said, at least for my own peace of mind, I need to get this shown, what harm will come. So initially we went to the doctor and they said you should take him for a BERA testing, which is brain evoked response auditory test, where the child is sedated, and it's a kind of a 2-hour test, where they make the child listen to some clicks and some sounds, and then they map the brain for some sound patterns to see if his auditory receptors, his auditory skills are in place or not. And that thankfully came out fine. So we knew that we needed to eliminate certain things, whether his hearing was impacted, whether there was something else at play. In fact, they also made us take the Fragile X syndrome test, which is like a very rare genetic disorder. But thankfully that also turned out to be negative. And then we had him shown to Dr. Brajesh Udani, who's one of the top pediatric neurologists in India. He sits at Hinduja hospitals. So we went there, and then he assessed him, he examined him, and he said, this is autism. And he needs to go for another psychological evaluation with a psychologist. And then she told us that this is what autism is all about.
at what age is this?
Around 2 years, 2 months, 2 years, 3 months. But I would say that the diagnosis happened much early of this condition, vis-a-vis many kids who are not diagnosed till the age of 6, 7 or even 8 today. And that's sad because, your brain is almost developed by the age of 6. 60% of your vocabulary is already there. Around 60% of your vocabulary is already built by the age of 6. So what happens is that if you are not verbal by that age, then you take a very, very long time to acquire those skills.
Right.
See, initially, earlier, the statistics said that 1 in every 65 kids was autistic. Now that number has even dropped down further. It's 1 in 35 kids is now diagnosed with autism. Or
Wherever they may
Asperger's.
be on the spectrum. That's
Yeah. Now, autism is like a rainbow. If you have to just describe it in a layman's language, it's like a rainbow. It's a spectrum disorder. You could be at one end of the rainbow or the other end of the rainbow. So right from mild to moderate to extremely severe and extremely severe autism. Now I have seen a lot of kids with moderate to severe autism, and trust me, it's very tough. Not just for the child, but even for the caregiver. So anyway, so the moment that happened, we were obviously very shocked, and we didn't know what had gone wrong, honestly, why it happened. The question was why. For me, it was why me and why my child? That's the usual question that comes to your mind, why my child? So once we came home, I actually broke down. I remember crying for half an hour, and then I said, okay, this is not really going to help. And now that he has told us what to do, let's get on to that. Because he told us clear things, that he needs occupational therapy, he needs speech therapy, and that will really help him. So then the next thing to do was to look for the right therapy center and the right therapist. Luckily, we found a therapist very nearby. And that time we were living in Thane, by the way. And we found somebody nearby, and we started taking him there for his occupational therapy and speech therapy. So the occupational therapy really helped him in terms of developing sitting tolerance, focus, being able to do multiple things simultaneously, like sitting on a swing and solving a riddle, for example.
Oh.
Something like that. Or climbing
So like
a ladder.
multitasking,
Yeah, or climbing a ladder. So what occupational therapy primarily does, Atul, is it works on a lot of skills. One is your gross motor skills. Gross motor skills is what we use in walking.
Hands and walking.
Hands.
Yeah.
And then you have fine motor skills where you use your pincer grip, or your grip to write, or put a thread through a needle. So these are the kind of activities they would make them do. Take a thread and bead, put those beads bead the, you put the thread through the beads, beading, putting small pegs in boards, in the holes in boards, catching the ball, throwing it, sensory integration. Also a lot of sensory issues like Soham would not like to consume or ingest anything which was liquid or which was like semi-solid. So occupational therapy also helped him in overcoming these challenges. But that was just the beginning of it, when we started with his therapy, because we did not really understand what it was supposed to be, therapy, because we were sitting outside and they would do the therapy in a separate room, including speech therapy. So I had no clue what was happening inside, and they would say, oh, today we did this and today we did this, except for the occupational bit where they would let me sit and observe what they were doing. But for the speech, I had no clue what was going inside. So I never saw that transformation or even a slight change even over those 3 months where he could speak or say something meaningful. And she would say, no, today we did this and we did that, and today I made him emit these sounds and all that, and I had no clue how to go about it.
But was he actually emitting those sounds outside of that space?
Maybe once in a while, but something so negligible that I wouldn't notice really. Now, during that
So
time,
for them it was just probably tick marks on a board, that
perhaps.
कितना पैसा लिया है तो ये tick marks है, ये मैंने
Yeah,
कराया
yeah,
है. Like
yeah.
in school,
Yes,
they got you
absolutely.
through first to 10th standard, like most schools. What skills you developed are irrelevant.
Absolutely. And around that time, I was still researching for a lot of other places and networking and talking to a lot of other people as to what else I could do. And then I learned about Umeed. Now, Umeed is a foundation.
So we'll come to this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, because let's go back a little.
Yeah.
So we'll come to Umeed after this. But what I wanted to know was that how was he interacting with other children when he was like 14 or 14
He
months?
wasn't interacting.
He wasn't interacting. So if you have like 10 children and like you must have
He
gone
would be
to a
doing his
wedding.
own thing. He would be, if you would give a marble or anything, he would just, so for example, if you give him Play-Doh, the clay, those clay
Yeah,
that
yeah, clay
he,
se jo
he would just keep making balls out of it. As I said,
That's
he was
his obsession
fascinated
with spears.
Spheres, circle, the round shape. There was nothing that interested him. Nothing.
So if a
you
kid
would give
came
him
and
books, he wouldn't look at the picture, or he would just point at the wheel, something round in the book, or if you would see the full moon, and that's how he learned to say moon. But that's the only thing he ever said.
So if there are 10 kids here and he's one of them, and a kid comes and just beats him, so what would he do? He would do nothing. He would not even react to it, or
He would probably push him away.
okay.
Yeah, but that's all.
He would not get into a jostle or a fight.
No,
with
he
him at all.
wouldn't know. He was
He just
too
wants
much,
to be left
he was in
alone.
his own world. He was in his own world. Luckily, he did not have any aversion to being touched. A lot of kids with autism, they have aversion of being touched, being hugged. They don't want to sit in a room full of people. In fact, this was something we also noticed with him when he was growing up initially, which later on went off. He would not be okay with a lot of people around initially, unless he really knew them.
Unless he really knew them, he's like.
Sorry?
But that's true for a lot of children, no? I mean,
That's true for a lot of children, but what I am saying that when we had, this is a little later of course, but when we celebrated his birthday party and we thought let's invite all the kids, make it special for him, he just hid under the bed. He didn't want to come out. The moment he saw there's so many people, he just went in. It was sensorily too overwhelming for him. A lot of kids on the spectrum have sensory issues. Some might not be okay with loud sounds like the pressure cooker whistle. Even Soham used to do that. If he would hear the pressure cooker whistle, he would just clamp his hands on his ears. Or if there are too many people, he would just shut his eyes or cringe his face. Avoidance, what you call as passive avoidance.
Which tells you that the child may be autistic. I think this now that you
Now,
think of
when
it.
we say autistic, see that time I didn't know till the time I went and actually saw the chart, until I went to Dr. Rajesh
Right.
Udani, I had no idea what was all that about. Right. So I had no idea. And the other thing was he had no fear of danger. So he would perch on the edge of a table with his back facing towards the floor, for example, not worried that he might fall off. Or just run in the middle of the road, not worried that the car is coming towards him. So he had no sense of danger. He had no sense of, if he would be in a mall, for example, he would just run. If he would see any colorful things, he would just run away. He wouldn't care to see whether his mother is falling or not. In usual cases, what happens when a child is in a mall or in a place which is full of some kind of external stimulus like sounds, music, colors, something, sparkling, or lights and all that, the child will run ahead, but then he will just pause. He will look whether his mother is following him or not. They have this sense that their mother needs to be with them. They can't be left alone. They are not very confident of just venturing on their own. He wouldn't be bothered. He would just go.
Because I think he's not identifying with the relationship. That's probably what is happening.
No, I'm sure he identified with the relationship, but they are just too much in their own world, and and they're overwhelmed by a lot of things. So these are the things that then they go on the back burner. Whether the mother should be along with them, they don't have that sense of safety. It's no fear of danger, right? No stranger anxiety that way. So if a person would have said, "Come with me," and taken him, he would have gone.
That's what I'm saying. Because, for example, one of the definitions of was that it's massive difficulty in communicating, interacting, and forming relationships with other people also. So it's like, even if you are in the house and as a mother, the entire, what you would see other children have a relationship with their mother, which is not exactly the kind of relationship that you're getting from your son.
Yeah. So he knew I was a caregiver, of course. If he needed, he would point and he would come to me.
And more of a caregiver relationship.
And it's also because being a mother, I would sense what he wanted to without him expressing it very explicitly or verbally, right? So we take it for granted that the child has told me what he wants and I fulfilled his need. It's over. It's done. Without giving much thought, was he really able to verbalize it? Was he really able to articulate it the way other kids were? This comes only when the child is growing and then there's a certain comparison with the world around him and kids around his age, where you start drawing parallels or non-parallels here in this case and say, oh no, this is not working in my kid's case. So why? The moment that question comes, and that is where you start looking for answers.
And whatever was happening after that was not very encouraging for you either. In terms of wherever you're going, in terms of occupational therapy, meeting.
So what happened that I initially, when I said I cried, I was really very despondent, and I was like, my world came crashing down. I said, why this child? He would give a knowing smile when you looked at him, and what happened all of a sudden? In photographs, his smile would be a knowing smile, knowing that he's being photographed, right? And now, suddenly he doesn't even respond when you look at him, when you call out to him. So what has suddenly changed? That was what really bothered me. At that moment, that is what really bothered me. But then, Atul, the moment I walked into the clinic and I saw so much misery, parents coming in from far off places like Virar and Borivali and Ambarnath and God knows where, coming from different walks of life, different communities, different belief systems, they came there just for the sake of their child. And these children, they ranged anywhere from a child who had dystonia, where your muscles are so, there's no muscle tone, so you can't even sit on your own, you can't walk, you have no muscle control, to dyslexia, we had Down syndrome, severe autism. And then I saw how they came. They would come by a local train. They would come without telling their husbands or their families that they were going to a doctor or a pediatrician or for therapy, because it was such a taboo in their household. And then, then I really thought, oh my God, I'm so privileged. I have the support of my entire family, including my husband, including my in-laws, my parents, everybody. I have the money to put into his therapy. There was nothing lacking. These people were really having a hard time coping with it, because the mothers would come there, they would, save some money in some chawal ka dabba and something, and they would quietly, take the kid and come under some other pretext just for 1 hour of therapy session. So I was like, there's no way I should be complaining about this to anyone. It's like I have blues for I have no shoes till I went into the street and found a man without feet, and I thought it was just so true in my case. What was I complaining about? I literally had everything, and the best part was that the diagnosis was early, very very early, and that's a very very crucial part of any neurological deficit. Because the sooner it is diagnosed, the sooner the intervention starts, hopefully, of course. And the sooner the intervention starts, the kid has a much, much better chance, statistically or otherwise, to lead a fully functional life as an adult. Because these are conditions which are not curable. It's not something which can get cured with a vaccine or a medicine or something that you take during pregnancy or before childbirth that it will prevent. Maybe in future, but right now we don't have anything. And in this case, just like you have thyroid and just like you have diabetes, people accept it, right? When you say I have diabetes or I have thyroid, it's not something that will go off ever. But you learn to cope with it. You take your medication, you do your exercises, you do your meditation, whatever it takes to keep it under check. It's the same with these disorders. Except that, yes, the diagnosis is a crucial key and the intervention at the right time. Because as I said, by the 6th year, the child's brain is almost developed, And then it's difficult to, it's like the clay which is hardened.
Because 60% of the vocabulary is already developed.
Yeah, it's developed.
And it's difficult to get that.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So it was not just Providence, I was really very, very lucky that I found a place like, so Umeed, as I said, that this was the next place where I went to, Umeed.
This was at what age, of his?
Around the same age when he was around
2.5
years, when we were taking him for his therapy in Thane, and I just thought I was not happy with it.
Where is Umeed?
Umeed is in Lower Parel.
Lower Parel.
There's this place called Mantri Pride Building, and it's it's actually exactly a 2 or 3 minute walk from Chinchpokli station. If people travel by train, then they can get down at Chinchpokli and they can go to Umeed. They can just walk across.
I just want to come to, because I'm not sure, because I like to be free flowing, but they should come to this now or later. But let's talk about it now. I mean, I'm saying that I had a very long talk with your husband.
Yeah.
And what he said to me was that he was not accepting at all. And I really like Devan because he was very frank, honest. He gave you a lot of credit. And he said that for me as a male, at a certain point in time, it was a little difficult to accept because what will relatives say? That bothered him. And I was not really accepting that my child can be autistic.
Right.
For a long time, I think his fight was that how is it possible that my child is autistic? Because he was looking at it as a very, probably I'm just seeing it as a bad thing and as a very bad thing, and then everybody's going to laugh at me or whatever, maybe, So, and it took him, once he accepted it, I think he's been on board. So he's been more than on board like anything.
Absolutely.
But he had a lot of issues with accepting it. And I honestly don't feel like your husband is a male patriarch kind of at all. I mean, I honestly don't. But one has to understand that just that one little thing can actually stimulate a certain trait in a human being, which says that, okay, no, this is not what. So at that point, when this was happening, and I'm sure you agree with this. So was it a lonely life for you at trying to figure this out, because you're alone at home also with the child, and you're seeing that child like almost 24 hours the whole day. You're not. I'm sure your whole life changed, because he said that you were an outgoing person. You like to go out all the time, and all that just changed overnight for you, and you became this completely focused on your child, which he said that because he was working, he was also providing for the house, and. Was that a lonely time for you, being alone with the child and not having that exact kind of support? Because I'm sure this happens with a lot of women. And what your husband said is, which I find I mean, I got goosebumps when I heard that. It was like he said that a lot of people consider this to be the woman's problem. You know, it's not the male problem at all. It's the woman's problem. It's your kid, and that when you talked about this women coming all the way from say Ambernath and Virar and whatever, it was generally the woman who used to come with the kid. That is what largely that
all
is
of them actually.
all
Right,
of them.
yeah.
Never the male.
Maybe, you know, like once in a blue
Once in
moon
a
you
blue
may
moon.
see a father, because by that time that acceptance has come through, or he's a more evolved person that way. Yes. Yeah, so this about Devin, first of all, let me tell you that about 6 to 8 months I had a hard time, because I knew there was something terribly amiss with my kid. It was that instinct. And the only thing I regret was not anymore, but that time I regretted that when the diagnosis came in, we could have had the diagnosis a year before.
Year before.
Had he agreed.
Right.
Even earlier. And we could have just started
Right.
a year earlier.
Right.
Because every day that passes, you know, there is all kind of connections happening inside your brain. Those neurons are developing, those connections are being made, and they are not getting made the way they should be, just because you don't.
You're wasting time.
You're wasting time. Every minute is so precious. Every day is so precious. You know? So yes, I had a hard time at that time. Was I lonely? No, I had a lot of friends there, and they kept saying, don't worry, he'll speak and all that. But then I spoke to my mom. I said,
But you are alone with your thoughts. I mean, my thing is
I
that-
was alone with my thoughts.
and you are thinking that, okay, they are saying it will happen,
Yeah.
but you're not so
That's
sure.
a way of reassuring. You know,
That's
you
just
would
the re-
reassure
yeah.
your friends.
Yeah,
As a
yeah,
friend,
yeah.
you
नहीं,
want to
हाँ, तेरा पैर
reassure.
टूट गया, ठीक हो जाएगा.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, मतलब
But the point was, I was witnessing it all the time. I was experiencing, I was living it. I was living it 24 hours. That's correct.
right, right.
So yes, it got tough for a while, but the moment this acceptance came in, thankfully, I don't think Devin is the person who actually thought it was a woman problem.
No,
That
no,
being
not
a woman
him.
problem. No, I'm just saying,
Exactly,
for
I
me
agree.
that worked, because it was not like a woman thing, which again, I'm not going to name those communities, but then there's a lot of communities where a lot of these things, when they go wrong, it is blamed on the hereditary characteristics from the mother's side, from the bahu's side, from the woman's side, right? कि तुम्हारे इसमें कुछ खोट है, इसलिए बच्चे को ऐसा कुछ हुआ है. Even till today, these people are not evolved to understand how things really work. You know, the genetics come from both sides. It's not never a one thing. And even if it is hereditary, how do you trace back your family tree and go how many generations
And how does it
back to
matter? I
see?
mean, even if the woman's gene is
whether it's a
responsible.
woman or a man's, but how do you know? And
How
even,
does it
and,
matter?
And,
I mean-
even if it is, then now what?
Now what?
Now
Exactly.
what?
It's
how
done.
does it matter? Knowing the cause is not the end of the story, right? I mean, what you do about it, right? You know there's a problem, so what are you going to do about it? That's it. I think from that time, we just, the moment Devin gave us support, you know, I think we just looked ahead. We never turned back, and we never got into wires and all that, because for me, I knew it was very crucial to utilize every minute to get him on track. And I am a very determined mother, I must say.
I think
Not
a lot-
praising,
all-
but
yeah.
I was like that fierce warrior mom, you know, who had this path to burn and just take her child through and make sure he gets to where he needs to be, against whatever odds. And that journey continues. It's in different phases, of course, as you'll get to know. But yeah, that's how it started. And then we learnt about.
What kind of stories, when you interacted with these women, other women who were there with you, whatever, matlab, and I think it's not really a community, it's generally a very, all kinds of people have this patriarchal mindset.
Yeah, I agree.
And-
It doesn't. I mean, even
and,
the so-called elite, so-called
exactly.
very educated
Exactly.
people living in the poshest of localities have
So,
exhibited
because you were
these things.
sitting in that clinic with
Yes.
all these women, what are the kind of stories that they shared with you? What would,
The stories that were shared that my family does not accept that there's something wrong with the child, that I'm over obsessing about it. Somebody would say, they said that इसको तो कुछ ये पागल है, इसको घर में रूम में अंदर रखो, कोई आएगा बाहर तो बाहर नहीं लाना है. They wouldn't take their children to functions, family functions, festivals, places where there are a lot of people, because it was something to be ashamed of, something not to be revealed, something not to be divulged, something to be kept under wraps. And more often than not, the father would never be in that zone of understanding that this could be a real problem that needs to be dealt with. As you correctly said, it was more like a woman problem,
No, this Devin said to me.
That also, plus I'm sure there are fathers who believe that yes, they can be a part of that journey, but then the excuse they give themselves is that if they are going to be involved, then who's going to bring the bread home? Right.
So somewhere, wouldn't you look at it like this, that this is where the class barriers started falling off, because some of what they were saying, if not all, was resonating with you, sitting there and listening to them, and it's like, even I have my support, I have a great husband, but nobody is really understanding me that this is what it is, and that maybe that little support that you needed, you were getting, not if not support, it was just that being a part of a certain tribe which said that, okay, there are other people, it's not me, I'm not crazy. I mean, I'm at home alone and I'm not crazy. I see my kid every day, and I believe that this is what is happening, and that's, I
think what also happens with fathers is that when I say fathers specifically, because I thought that when I told him that there's something not right, and he would look for reasons which are right.
Give an example.
So let's say I say that he's not smiling. No, he smiled at me yesterday. So when we are convinced that there's nothing wrong with the child, then we are going to come up with all our reasons. We are going to look for all those reasons which make us believe that there's nothing wrong.
You're at least going to create a rationale or imagine a rationale.
Yeah, either you imagine a rationale, as you correctly said, or create one, or give instances, And I was like, I'm there all the time. He said, that's the reason you're over-obsessing. Yeah. But finally, the moment he relented, it was like a clear breakthrough, There was just no holding back. I mean, there was no holding back any which way. It took him time, because as you correctly said, even if we believe that we are more evolved not to worry about what people think, somewhere, you have your cousins who have children who are typical, the neurotypical, and then suddenly you're not sure how comfortable you are really going to be able to break that to them, or have them look at your child and wonder why is he behaving in a different manner, right? So yeah, somewhere we might tell ourselves that we are not those people, but it does affect us somewhere in our core. It does.
What he said to me was that how he looked at it was that autism is abnormality, and relatives will look at these parents with pity, So child's autism reflects somewhere on you also, So that's what scares you a little, and that's what you don't want it to go out, because it's somewhere you are worried about, you're a little shamed by.
It's an insecurity you have.
It's an insecurity that you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And he said something actually beautiful, which I thought, which he said, but you don't look like someone who would have this kind of mindsets, because he doesn't come across as someone. I mean, I hardly know him for half an hour now, because I went to Neeraj Pandey's office, and that's where I met him.
Yeah.
And he said that is maybe because Soham's journey has shaped us also as parents. Maybe we were like completely different, and I mean, it has shaped us and made us probably more sensitive, more.
At one of these places under the flyover near BKC or somewhere, I think, you see the statue of a mother and a child, where it says, child gives birth to a mother, right? For me, it was so similar. I thought, so actually shaped me as a person by leaps and bounds, and when I say leaps and bounds is the kind of patience I cultivated, which I don't think I would ever had. I'm not saying I'm an impatient person by nature, but the patience, it put into me the sense of empathy for others. I learned so much because of my child. Like today, if God would say, I'll reverse everything and make him the way you wanted him to be, I would say no. it's been a beautiful journey for me, at least. So, of course, it has been fraught with a lot of ups and downs, and which is again a part of anybody's journey. But I'm just saying that it really turned me completely. Completely. I've always thought that I'm a person who's a person who's bold usually in life, and that was put to test, and I'm glad, because bold in terms of taking certain steps or talking about it or not worrying about what is my neighbor going to think of it, or because I've faced a lot of people telling me that your child is pagal, isko kisi ko dikhao, that kind of a thing. Those things have happened. I've been through those.
The exact language.
I know, again, to give credit to that person later on came and apologized to me. She was in a fit of rage because Soham could not communicate at the age of 3.5 effectively, and then when kids would not come near him, he would spit on them or hurt them or push them. And he bit one child very badly. So she was really very, very upset.
He's the child's mother.
And she was very, very upset, and she started shouting at me in the garden in front of everyone, saying कि तुम्हारे बच्चे को problem है, इसको कहीं ले जाओ and all that. So I just told her, look, you need to calm down. I can explain this. She said, नहीं मुझे पता है तुम्हारे बच्चे को कुछ problem है, इसको यहाँ ले. Why do you let him play here when you know that he hurts other kids and all that? So I said, see, children fight, they'll bite, they'll grow up, they'll become friends, but as adults, let's just have a conversation about it. But obviously, when you are very angry, you're not willing to listen. So I just left it at that. But later on, I think she felt really contrite, and she came home with a gift for Soham, and she apologized. It was all good. But like I said, I've been in a space where, apart from whatever I had to do from my end, this kind of support I got from my family, especially my husband, was so immense. It really empowered me. It empowered me to take bigger strides, longer strides when it came to Soham's development. Not having to worry about anything. Just be completely focused on him. I was literally eating, drinking, breathing Soham. For me, it was like this one-point agenda, getting him on track. So whatever it took.
What Devin said to me, what he regrets, is not trusting Deepti with her instincts as a mother. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course he came and he really told me about how he felt about this after this happened, and he has apologized to me a million times, and obviously I have no anger about that. I mean, now again, when I go back and I say, if I were to be in his shoes, maybe I would have thought the same. I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. As I said, being with Soham has taught me so much empathy, when even people have wronged him and said things, and I said, okay, it's not their fault if the children don't want to play with my child. Had my child not been autistic, and had there been another child who had been autistic, would I really expect my child to go and deliberately go and play with him because it's not easy for him to connect with that child? Then why should I hold them, responsible or make villains out of them when they aren't actually? They don't know it. They are not living what I am living, so I can't blame them. I can't.
And then at around 2.5, 3 years, I think you went to meet, or 4?
Yeah, no, about 2.5, 3. We went.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong here, but I think Devin, what he said to me was that he accepted it when the child was 4. So
maybe that overall coming together of that closure, if I would say, on the acceptance part. That word is so important for me, closure, because it's something, even today for me, it's very important to tell other parents the importance of closure on acceptance, because unless you have that closure here, Atul, you cannot move ahead. You cannot move ahead with the journey. You have to give of yourself completely 100%. Even if you have a shred of doubt that no, this is not what it is, then you can't give of yourself to the child.
Closure, by closure you mean that
Closure means accepting that my child has autism, or my
Autism.
child has, this particular condition.
closure against all the biases that you have
No, first closure that this is my child, this is what he has, which is fine, I'll accept it and I'll move on.
Right.
And I won't care about what the world thinks. That closure is so important because it hinders the intervention process completely. And there's always a transference. Your child may be autistic, he might be dyslexic, he might have any form of condition, but emotionally they understand. When there's some negativity in the house, if there's some positivity in the house, it affects them. There's a transference. In psychological terms, they call it transference. There's this vibes, there's this, it's not anything tangible, but you can give it out. If I were just to sit in front of you very stiff, and you would get such a different vibe from me, it's body language at the end of the day. And if the primary caregiver does not have closure in his heart and his mind, how is he going to help his child? You have to help yourself first, right? You have to be in that space of saying, it's okay if my child has this condition, but I'm going to work on it. And I'm not going to care, I'm not going to give a damn to what other people think or say. Because for me, my child is my biggest investment. And for me to reap that reward of that investment, I really need to work on it.
So once that acceptance, obviously from what I understand, your husband took a little more time to get there, and obviously once he's been there, I'm sure it's been there more than 100% or as much as you have been.
Yeah.
But once you found this, who told you about Umeed, what you're talking about? How did you come across
I think I don't
that?
really...
Occupational therapy was not working at all according to you. I mean, it was not.
It worked to a certain point. It worked and then it stopped. Then what?
What kind of teachers were they according to you?
They were these people who had just passed out of their exams and they were training there as interns. The main therapist was always busy with her old patients, so she didn't really have enough time. She was not a bad therapist, I wouldn't say that. But that's what I'm saying. There are certain things which I find which are so drastically wrong in therapy centers. When we talk about therapy center, and I want to talk about it right now because all those parents, if they are listening to this podcast, they need to know that when they take their child for therapy, they are supposed to be a part of the therapy session. They can't be made to wait outside in a waiting room. Because the therapist is just a facilitator. Because you're doing therapy what? 1 hour, either thrice a week or once a week, depending on their slots and all that.
Right.
But that therapy has to be there all the time, 24 hours a day.
Right.
And who's going to do that?
Right.
The mother, the primary caregiver. She's therapist. The therapist
she's
is
the primary
facilitator.
therapist.
The mother is a therapist.
Wow.
And if she doesn't know
The
what
mother,
is to
the
be
father,
done,
I mean, they are the primary
yes.
therapists.
And if they don't know,
Yeah.
then how do you move ahead?
Right.
It's like now that when I say that Soham goes for swimming 6 days a week in Thane, if I'm just having him do swimming twice a week, 1 hour, he's not going to do anything. He's not going to learn. The entire progress is going to be so slowed down, and then there's a regression because there's nothing happening in between. They might tell you verbally, बच्चे को ये करा दो, उससे ये कराना, ये 4 बार कराना. But unless you actually see it with your eyes, you experience how it is being done, it doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. So that's why I'm saying that parents, whenever they go to a center, they really have to be sure who they're going to, because nowadays those centers are like everywhere. Everybody's opening up a center. And most parents have no idea who they are going to. What's the qualification of that person? What's the experience? They go by hearsay. A lot of people, like even one of my domestic resources who comes in the afternoon, she told me just day before, my granddaughter, she is not able to learn anything in school. She doesn't listen. She's throwing a tantrum. She can't speak. Her father beats her, but she throws things back at him. I don't know what to do. Somebody told us take her to some center for some therapy. Ye therapy kya hota hai? Now, when you have people coming from these certain strata, they are completely lost. They are so lost. And these centers, they really fleece them. They'll charge anything from 500 to going up to 3,000 an hour, depending on where you go. It's very difficult. It's a very tough life for them.
I think it's like teaching, no? Like if you think about, that's what I ask people when they talk about teaching. I say, how many teachers do you actually remember?
Yeah.
Who you thought taught you anything? So like you must have had 100, 200 teachers in your lifetime when you went to school and college. And I went to film school or business school. I'm saying, so I had probably 150, 200 teachers. I don't remember 5. Because those 5 had empathy for you. They understood how to teach you so that you understand better. So even in an occupational therapy center like this, or any therapy center, if you just have a degree from somewhere and you're just doing it, it makes no sense.
No.
So you may not have a degree and you may still have the skill to be empathy, to have the empathy to understand how to do it. Yeah. And that I think what is a mother is, because if she has the empathy for her own child at least,
Absolutely.
And so if she is there, then, and even these therapists, whoever they are, most of them must just be like, acha chalo yaar, aaj भाड़ा भरना है या whatever is, इतना खर्चा हो गया, ये हो गया. So it's just, you're not going to get the right therapist unless they have the empathy. And the kind of, like it's not like diabetes, na, कि end of the day ये गोली दे दिया हो गया, या ये तुमको अगर ब्लॉक है तो चलो ये स्टेंट लगा दिया, या फिर it's not that simple.
No.
This is more emotional. There has to be an emotional investment in that person.
It's a complete investment.
Yeah, otherwise
it's
not going to work.
complete emotional, mental, physical, all kind of investment, if I were to say.
So
you have to be invested completely.
So most therapists are not going to have that, in my opinion. So it's just going to be
and
a job.
And it's fair because, again, as I said, it's their profession. It's their bread and butter. So they can allocate only a specific time to your child. But then the real therapist would actually tell you what to do and how to do it.
No, but that's the whole point, that they're not really real therapists. I mean,
there are people, and as I said, that I was lucky to find the best of them.
Exactly, but they're 5 out of 100. That's the maths.
Exactly.
That's like our teachers in our whole lifetime.
So you really have to network, and you have to talk, and you do your Google. You talk to hundreds of people. Now, my sister-in-law's sister-in-law again. She's the head of psychiatry department at Ram Manohar Lohia. She, I think, told us about Umeed, if I'm not wrong. And she told us about Vibha Krishnamurthy. Now, Vibha Krishnamurthy is an iconic figure. She's a developmental pediatrician. I don't know if you've heard of her. She had featured on TED Talk also, Man Ki Baat with Shah Rukh Khan. And she's the one who realized the dire strait in which all these people live in when it comes to managing this condition.
Developmental pediatrician mean?
Developmental pediatrician is different from a pediatrician because they figure out how the child's development is taking place. Is he attaining the right milestones or not? Are there any things which are curtailing that? How do you work on that? I wouldn't know too much details, but developmental pediatrician actually understands if a child's not just physical, but it's more the emotional, the mental, the intellectual development taking place or not, that way.
Okay. So she was on TED Talk and she understood that
She came on TED Talk recently, a few years back, but I have known her since the time I started going to Umeed. This was long back. I think she was in the US for a very long time. She came here, she set up Umeed, and she's an amazing person. She's an amazing person, and she has a stellar team of therapists in Umeed. Now, how Umeed works is that if you have the ability financially, then they charge you the full fee. And if you come from a lower strata where you really don't have a proper income, then they give you a lot of concession. Okay. And they also have these outreach programs where they will go to slums and they will go to remote places and educate people there about all these deficits and what to do about it, or set up some centers there, or train the pediatricians to do certain therapy. I don't know. They do a lot of work that way.
Can you just repeat the address of this place? It's
Umeed is in Mantri Pride building. And it's there on Google. It's in Lower Parel.
Okay. But people can find it. I mean, it's okay.
So the sudden difference in therapy I saw when I went to Umeed, and there was this amazing therapist. Now he's in Nepal, in fact. He's left Umeed. His name is Ravi Raj Shetty. And he was working on Soham. So we were supposed to, initially I was in the room with him and he showed me all the things he was doing with him. Next time he made me sit in an adjoining room which was divided by a window, one-way window, where I could see them, but they couldn't see me, and I could hear. There was a speaker. I could hear their voices, and I could actually see what he was doing, how he was going about it, and how my child was responding to it. So that really helped. And at the end of every session, he would call me in and tell me, this is what he did, how he did it, what I can do at home with him, and where is it leading to. And then they would have a plan in place for they have something called 4 weeks, 8 weeks, I'm not sure how many weeks, certain weeks on and certain weeks off. So for a particular number of weeks, you go to Mead, you do your therapy, then for the next few weeks, you do it on your own, and then you come back again, so that they can accommodate more children accordingly.
So it's like homework.
Yeah, but they have a lovely center. They have a huge center. They have a lot of rooms with all the equipment possible and amazing therapists. It's just that there's a bit of a wait list because it's really a lot in demand. So Umid was one part, and then I met another mother while in the waiting room at Thane, and she was somebody I thought was a very inspirational person in my life, because she had a son who was autistic. She was staying in Mulund, and she would come all the way to this place in Thane for the therapy for her son, and she would leave her 2.5, 3-year-old daughter all alone at home because she had no in-laws, no parents, no family, and her husband was completely removed from all this. Like, he had no interest in knowing what was going on because he had not accepted that the child has an issue. And she would be on her scooter with her son. She would lock the house. She would tell her daughter, eat your food. She would keep something for her. The child was mature enough to manage things on her own, but this lady used to come all the way for the therapy. And then she told me, and her son had started speaking pretty well, so she told me that don't waste your time doing speech therapy here. And then she gave me the address and number of a speech therapist called Dr. Shubhangi Aulak, who used to sit at Chembur. And then we decided to go to her. So by the time we went to Dr. Shubhangi Aulak, he was 2 years and 10 months. So the first time, this is something you should know, the first time when we walked into her clinic, she had him sit on that round stool, you have in doctors' clinics, and she was talking to us. And suddenly my son hears the sound of the aeroplane outside the window. So he hops on the stool and goes to investigate. So she got up, picked him up, and roughly sat him down with a thud on the stool like this. And nobody had ever done that to him, So he sat there throughout those 40 minutes without getting down and looking at her. Complete eye contact for the first time.
Which he has never done before.
Never ever done.
40 minutes of eye contact.
She said, what does he speak? What can he speak?
Because one of the things of autism is that they don't make eye contact.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So what is it that he can do? What can he say?
Wow.
So my husband said, I think the other day he said submarine. She said, but usko bhook lagegi to submarine to nahi mangega na. So what can he speak? Then she taught us how to have him speak. And she is, I don't think, Atul, there's anybody like her in India or even abroad, if I can take the liberty of saying that. Because she is a person who did not just teach my child speech and language. She taught him to think and speak. Not like rote learning.
Wow. Which is what your
to be
occupational
able
therapist
to
was doing.
understand what you're speaking, not speaking just like, how are you? I'm fine. It's not a script.
Are you fine? Then you say I'm fine.
Yeah. So she had this group sessions on Saturdays where she would line up 6 kids against the wall, and then she would keep those blocks which just had to be piled on top of each other, and she would not call out their names. She would look at a particular child and he had to come forward. So they had to be alert, and they always kept looking at her because they knew, I have no idea when is she going to call me. She might look at me next. So I have to keep looking at her.
Amazing.
And every time a child would do something good, she would give him a small chocolate chip, that chocolate chip, as a reward, as an incentive. Now they say when children have autism or these kind of hyperactivity, you should not give them sugar, because that kind of lowers their focus, their concentration, their sitting tolerance. But she would say, no, this is something he will work for. So you give him a very small piece. Keep different kind of rewards in the house. Don't let it be monotonous. Then she gave me a lot of homework to do, Atul. She told me, I am only going to tell you how to do it. And then what she would do, Atul, is, for example, if she would have my child sitting facing her, and she would hold the picture of a cup, a picture, next to her lips and say, cup. And then she would have me demonstrate how I will do that at home, so that she would know if I'm doing it right or not. So she was teaching me to do therapy with him at home and how to do it. And she said, also, see, this is where you went wrong. You have to say it this way, not that way. And that is where my journey with Dr. Aulich started. And it was a tough one because she was a very, very, very hard taskmaster. So you had to be on time. The child had to say, may I come in, Shubha Aunty? May I sit on the stool, Shubha Aunty? And the day I had not done enough therapy with him, I would get psychosomatic symptoms. Like when you are not prepared for your exam, you have a stomach ache, your head aches, you get loose motions. I actually experienced that.
Superb.
I would be palpitating, like I was like, oh my God, now she's going to shout at me. I said, you haven't done anything, you go back. Pay me the entire fee, but you go back, you haven't done anything. I had told you do this 30 times. But
Did she do that anytime with you?
Yeah.
She did that.
So she would say, she made me take pictures of every object in the house and get that photo developed, paste it on a cardboard mean any soap cardboard or a chai ka lifafa uska wo kaat ke us pe chipka ke, again cut it so that it's sturdy and it doesn't tear off easily. Have the child sit in front of me at eye level. So ideally it would be me sitting on this bench or chair with my son sitting on the table, so that it would be an eye level, and hold the picture right next to my lip and say cup,
Wow.
so that he could see the lip movement and relate it with the image.
And maybe sometime copy it.
Yeah, and then he had to say it. So I had to do it 20 times, 5 times a day, or 6 times a day, or whatever repetitions, but 20 times in a day. So she said, you have to stop inviting people over, you have to stop going out, you have to cook meals one day in advance, so no moment is wasted, and you can utilize everything in speech therapy. Her point was simple. Speech is the mother of everything. She said, unless you have speech, you don't have language. Unless you have language, you cannot communicate. And if you cannot communicate, you can't even learn. And you can't express yourself. So anything that you do, you have to use your voice. You have to speak. So, and there's a limited time up to which the child will develop a certain amount of vocabulary. Post that, it becomes more and more difficult. Like I said, that 60% of vocabulary and all that.
Right.
So she said that you have to give up everything and just focus on speech therapy. And it was frustrating for me because, it was not that every time someone would cooperate, because it's not easy for a child to sit in one place, even for 10 minutes, at a stretch. So I would lure him with a choco chip, or sometimes let him blow a bubble or blow out a candle or do something. But there were times that even I would feel bored and say, oh God, I don't want to do this anymore today. And as the day would approach for that therapy where I had to go and report to her, I would start getting palpitations. Or mera gussa wo swam pe nikalta tha. You didn't speak it loudly. Say it again. And she would just know whether he was prepared or not, whether the homework was done or not, just by the volume of the child's voice. If she would say, she would just show a picture and say, He had to say table or bottle or water. Something like he would just mumble. She would know he doesn't have the confidence to speak, because he's not practiced enough, because his mother has not put in enough effort. So she was an extremely hard taskmaster. I've seen mothers crying there. I've seen people dropping off also, parents dropping off. She told me personally about this couple who used to fly every week from Hyderabad to Mumbai just for 1 hour session with her. So yes, there were people who came, who dropped off, there were people who stayed. But those who stayed, their children really did wonders, including mine. And in fact, because of her, my son started sleeping on his own in his room by the age of 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he would get up in the middle of the night, use the washroom, use the flush, turn off the lights, go back to his bed and sleep.
That is better than what most normal 4-year-olds do.
Yeah. She taught him to think. She said, tomorrow somebody might say that he took my eraser. Does he know how to say, no, I did not? So how to teach the no? One thing Soham really struggled with was I and you, because in autism there's a condition called echolalia. So if you ask the child, what is your name? The answer will be, what is your name? He will just repeat what you're saying. This was echolalia. He's just echoing what you're saying,
She's not really got what is being said.
Yeah. So this is something that was taken care of. The speech was taken care of. The language was taken care of. And because I stuck around with her as long as I could, Soham could do so many things. He could speak. Today he argues like a regular teenager. Too much. So yes. So it's all thanks to her. For me, she's like God, and there are people who love to hate her, and there are people who really love her. So,
But they love to hate her because they are not able to meet her expectation of what a parent should do.
No, some of them said that my daughter used to get nightmares because of the kind of pressure she put on her.
Okay.
It's each to his own, it's a
That's
different
also a possibility,
experience.
actually, yeah.
It's a different experience for everyone. But I think anybody who went to her really, really benefited, because she did not just work on the speaking part, but also the behavior part, on how a child should talk to you, the eye contact, which was very necessary while speaking, right? It can't be that the child is looking here, how are you? I'm fine. There are a lot of kids who go for speech therapy and they'll say, I'm fine, but they're not looking at you. And she would give a bit of a whack on the hand, or on the shoulder. The child would suddenly, smarten up and be more alert. But she was a very hard taskmaster, I must say. But that really worked. There were mothers who would say, I have to go to a kitty party, so I'll come back once your therapy session is done. I'll come back, I'll send my maid. She said, then you don't have to come to me at all. You should go and see another therapist, because I need you to be here a part of the session and see how to go about it. And that's why I said that the primary caregiver or the mother is the actual facilitator, actual therapist, sorry.
Wow.
But then, even with that picture of a cup or a banana or a TV or a sofa, whatever, I had to take him to the mall or to the shop and show him 100 different types of cups, for example. So that he knew that if this is a glass, this can also be a glass. Or a different colored glass is also a glass. Or a printed mug is also, something with a print on it is also a glass. Or this is a dot pen. So this is a different looking pen, but it's a pen. So to generalize it.
Wow.
Touch it, feel it.
That's not easy to do.
No, it's not.
Wow.
So I took picture of everything, right from the lamp to the toilet seat to the spoon to the fork to the charger to everything that was in the house, like literally. And then we moved on to action verbs. So initially it was like auntie is drinking juice. Now today if you ask him, she said this woman is sipping on some coke or something, he will say. That's a difference. Or he would say uncle is coming out of plane. Now he'll say the passenger is disembarking from the flight. That's the difference.
Yeah, because once he understood the language, then he started
he was
understanding the nuance of the language.
Yeah, and then he starts, absorbing
Thinking
more.
through
and
that
inculcating.
language. That's true for
Language
all of us.
is still a bit of a struggle with
But to
him.
get him to that level is what,
Yeah.
language is a bit
Language is still a bit of a struggle because it'll always be a catch-up game for him, because, there always is going to be a gap, because the age at which other kids started speaking to vis-a-vis what he started, his vocabulary is not as expansive as us, but I think he communicates very well now, pretty well. I mean, at a go you will not be able to make out that there's something amiss, which was not the purpose actually, but I'm just saying that this is the confidence kids get when they
No, it's a regular
when
teenager.
they get speech.
Right.
Speech gives you a lot of confidence because it allows you, it empowers you to do so many things in your life. Forget about reading and writing. It's all about expressing your needs more meaningfully, more articulately, and that also makes you able to understand when people speak. Sharing commonality, interests, like today if he's playing football with other kids in the park in the evening, It's because he's able to communicate in whatever way it possible.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Amazing.
I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my conversation on trying to understand autism in children with Deepti Deshpande. I published the third and final part of this important conversation on Friday next week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I drop a new episode every Friday night at around 10 pm. I will also end this and every episode by recommending a film or a web series. But before that, here is a small message on how you can help to keep this podcast alive and growing. This episode is free and we intend to keep it that way. But it does take a lot of time, money and effort to produce the show. We research, write, record and edit before we finally present it to you. So if you wish to support our effort, you can help us produce the show by contributing any amount you wish on our website, conversationswithatul.com. Please note that the word conversations is plural with an S. So do visit conversationswithatul.com. Since we are talking about autism, here is my film record. The film I recommend today is the Peter Hedges written and Lasse Hallström directed film, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? The plot of the film revolves around Gilbert Grape, played by Johnny Depp, as he struggles to care for his autistic younger brother and his morbidly obese mom in a small town in the US. What's Eating Gilbert Grape rates a super 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb. Do watch if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter by following my Twitter handle Atul Taishete, spelled as ATULTAISHETE. Also, do visit my website Conversations, that is Conversations plural with an S. The complete website address is conversationswithatul.com. In the third and final part of this conversation on trying to understand autism in children, Deepti Deshpande converses about the concerns she had before having a second child, why it is important for parents to be completely invested in the child's therapy, and how the parents are the primary therapists. So please welcome Deepti Deshpande, a mother who has passed through her own journey of dealing with a child's autism, and on the final part of this 3-episode conversation talks of the progress her son has made in the last decade, the relay swim he participated in from Alibag to the Gateway of India, and why it is important to make the child aware of his or her autism. Hi, I'm Atul Taishete and welcome to my podcast, Conversations with Atul. But before we begin, here is a small message on a book I have written which can help you to write screenplays, novels and much more. Have you ever watched a film or a series or read a novel and felt, I can write better than this? Except you didn't really know how to. But now you can try your hand at writing screenplays, web series or novels with a little help from my book called Anybody Can Write a Film. Devoid of film jargon and loaded with examples from popular films, my book simplifies the process to write films, series or even a novel. Available on Amazon worldwide under the title Anybody Can Write a Film, Demystifying the Screenwriting Process by Atul Taishete. Visit Amazon.in to buy the book in India and Amazon in your respective countries to buy the Kindle version. Anybody can write a film. Now with my book, anybody actually can.
So what happened after that? I mean, for how long were you going to Ummeed then?
Ummeed continued almost till the 7th year, 6th year, 5th or 6th year, and then his entire therapy stopped also because he didn't really need much of it. We were doing a lot of it at home. He had come to a certain level. Also because by the time he was 5, Agastya was born. That was a decision which we really had to deliberate about whether we should have another child or not, because there's always a 5% chance that if your firstborn is autistic, there's a chance that the second one would also be autistic.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was not very
So it is
confident.
genetic somewhere, no? I mean,
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. But then when he was 4, I saw a lot of my friends having the seconds, and then I used to see all these siblings walking together, and I thought it would be so nice to have another one. And then I talked to a couple of doctors and gynacs, including my mom, and then they said, don't worry about it. Just go ahead with the flow. Nothing will happen. Then I told myself, what the worst that can happen is if my second child has autism, I already know what to do. I don't have to start from the scratch. So that is what I told myself. But luckily that didn't happen.
And how is the relationship between the siblings? I mean,
It's nice. It's the usual
fight, everything.
fight, everything.
Because you had siblings,
I have a brother. I have a brother who's younger
so
than
you
me.
see it, the same kind of
Yeah,
dynamic
yeah,
that.
yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So tell me the journey from from 6 onwards after Umeed. What has been Soham's journey and your journey with him?
So he was in school, and we thought it was a good school. But then once we went for one of their orientations where they wanted to show how they teach children, and then they showed us a video. And the video actually happened to capture Soham. But the teacher was talking to everybody and completely ignoring him, and he was in his own world again, doing something else, scribbling something, doing something. And then we felt really bad, and then we thought that this definitely is not a school for him. And then we learnt about this school, the school in which he is currently studying in, Nahar International School here in Chandivli. And the second I learned from the parent of another child who used to come to Umeed. And their son is a part of the Nahar school. And then when we spoke to them, we realized that they had a very lovely team, which is a student well-being team, who takes care of kids who might have a little deviation from the regular kids. And they are able to do a lot of stuff with them separately in school, and there's a lot of support. And I think it really bloomed very well in the school. He doesn't have too many friends in class per se. They all talk to him. He's not a part of any group as such, because the kind of conversations kids at this age have and the way they speak is not the way he speaks. He speaks, but he's not really able to get into that groove that way, whatever said and done. But otherwise, it's a great school. It's been a great school for him.
But that is true for a lot of kids. I mean, it's like there will always be certain kids who will be dominant within a group. Others will be a little less.
Yeah.
So that's just the dynamic.
Possible.
Of course, he'll have a certain kind of.
Yeah. But then we realized that he had a proclivity for sports, running, outdoor things, that inclination. He has an athletic frame. He's tall, he's lanky. So he got him into skating, got him into running. So he won his school marathon when he was in grade 7, and then later on he broke his own record again. So he was quite happy about it.
He was running a marathon.
Yeah, it was a school marathon, they call it the junior thon or whatever. But yeah.
But he came first.
Yeah, he came first, and then he broke his own record again the next time. So he was quite jubilant. And he has had his crushes in school also. Now that he's around, he will be turning 16 day after, in fact. But he keeps telling me, oh, that's a girl I like. She didn't talk to me, that this day she talked to me and all that. So all those kind of things we talk about.
Wow.
So he talks to me about everything under the sun. It's all very transparent.
Does he have a best friend? I mean, does he have...
Now he has, unfortunately we learnt about his swimming bit a little late. We had put him for swimming, he learnt it, but anywhere in this belt, any sport is done only twice a week. And you don't play sports like that. When we were growing up, we played that sport literally 7 days a week, 3 hours daily or whatever.
अभी तो गिटार भी सीखना है ना साथ में, वही तो चक्कर है.
चेस भी खेलना है, एक दिन वो भी करना है. That kind of focus is lost. So we have a very nice clubhouse, but again, as I said, the swimming is not really done on a very serious note. And then again, from the same child's mother who told us about Nahar school, we learnt about this national level swimmer called Aarti Pradhan, who crossed the English Channel at the age of 14.
Okay.
And she and her partner, Narendra Pawar, they train kids in Thane for swimming, serious swimming, professional swimming. And that's where Devan went and met them, talked to them, told them about Soham. Now Soham is a child who speaks only in English. He doesn't speak in Hindi and Marathi because for him it's not easy to pick up other languages. So Dr. Olak told us that you just stick to a language which will be more universal, where anywhere he goes, he can most of the time he can speak it. Now we also feel that it's important for him to know a bit of Marathi and Hindi, or at least understand, because if you want to take an auto or buy some stuff at a local shop, you should at least know the basic conversational skills. So we're now working on it. But anyway, so the entire batch of those kids who was a part of the swimming group, they all are from Thane and they're mostly speaking in Hindi and Marathi. But the kind of acceptance Soham found was amazing. They just love him, and he loves them. And he found some amazing friends in Thane, which he never could find in Mumbai really, or even in school. But they are so supportive, and he's having a ball of a time with these people, except that his time is very limited because we are there for 2 hours every day, 8 to 10 in the evening. But they have an amazing time when they're together.
Wow. What do you mean that they are more accepting of him? What is the difference?
There's no judgment, nothing. I also believe that sports is something like a leveler.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And let's not talk about autism, let's not talk about anything. Let's just talk about basic
Are you
language
better than
speaking
me?
ability, English speaking ability, or where do you live and which family you come from, or paisa kitna. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Once you're on the playing field, everybody is equal.
Yeah. And are you better than me or not?
But that is only in the game, right? Like, if you're a good player, you earn respect. Nobody cares. You can speak English. I mean, all this pro kabaddi league and pro kho league and all that. Do we think those people come from those,
elitist background.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Sports is an equalizer. It's a true equalizer, I feel. And this is something that is very inherent in him. And I think if that is what his strength is, then I would rather propel him in that direction rather than go the conventional way and wait for things to happen or then find out, oh no. But then it's very difficult to backtrack.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the moment we learned, then she said, will he be able to come to Thane every day? We said, yeah, we'll do that too. So we started taking him every day. So initially it was only Saturday, Sunday, 2 hours. Now they've started 6 days a week. That too, they've shifted the location. It is on Pokhran Road, number 1, ahead of that hotel. Which is that hotel? I don't remember. But it's quite farther than where it was originally. They had this TMC pool called Gadkari pool near the Talapalli, which was a proper 25-meter pool with a proper depth and good diving boards.
Yeah.
And now the one they are, it's more like a toddler's pool. It's hardly 4 feet deep. But at least they can swim every day. That's the only advantage.
Yeah.
So 8 to 10 p.m. We have to be there at the pool every day, which means we have to start at 6:30 at home, from home every day, me and Soham. And we come back by 11:30 in the night.
That's your regular schedule now.
Yeah. Earlier it was a breeze because it was 5 to 6 in the morning. So we used to wake up at 4:15 and I used to drive him down to that Gadkari pool, even in November and December. And by 5 he would be in the pool. By 5 he would be out. By 6:30 I would be again back in the kitchen, getting their tiffins ready for the school. But then there was no traffic early in the morning. But most kids, they have school at 7 in the morning. That's why they've shifted the timing to 8 to 10 in the night.
Okay, now let's do this. Put your day, like once you identified this and once Umid started or whatever that therapist started, what was your day like? Like from morning, what was your day like?
Morning were the usual chores, feeding everybody, getting into school
Getting
or whatever.
up at what time? Like
No,
when he was
I've
4
always been
o'clock.
an early riser.
Yeah.
Because of Som, for the swimming schedule, we were waking up as early as by 4. Nowadays,
not now. I'm saying that
that
will-
time I would wake up by, let's say, 6 o'clock, 6:30, tea, breakfast, all that.
That you're doing.
And that time he was in nursery, right? So there was no study pressure as such. So it mostly therapy and play, therapy and play, cooking, therapy, play.
No, I think you've not
And,
got my question completely. My question is that just for people to, for an audience to understand, that you have a child who's autistic, and you still are doing. That doesn't stop you from being a wife and जो बाकी जो responsibilities है वो भी तो है ही है, along with that. So what is the day of a woman like this who's now getting up in the morning, making breakfast at 6 o'clock,
whatever that she is. Then she has to take him from, and then be there on him, then come back and do his homework, which is there, plus whatever school timings are there. Then again, put him through all that. So it's like a complete, let me answer this for you. I mean, I'm saying that it's like a good 16 to 18 hours of continuous work, isn't it? I mean,
I broke it up. I'll be honest, because I wouldn't have sustained it otherwise. It's not easy. You know, you have to break it up. You have to take some breather. And this is something Vibha told me very, very categorically. She said, Deepti, so when I would go to her for my reviews at Umeed, Dr. Vibha Krishna, she would say, what do you do on Saturdays and Sundays? What are evenings are like? I said, nothing, not normal, the usual, just like it's Monday to Friday. So when do you go out with your friends? I said, I don't really go. She said, you have to start factoring this as a part of your weekly routine. You have to get out. You have to be with yourself. You have to have that me time or whatever. But you have to take care of yourself, otherwise it will be you will burn out. You know, you'll not be able to sustain this. And I just thought it made so much sense. Because there were times which were really frustrating at times, because I remember it took me a month to teach Soham the difference between to and by.
wow.
And I was at my wit's end, because on one hand, this woman was grilling me, Dr. Olak, you still not learned it, you're not working hard. And here I was thinking, I was trying and I would end up screaming at him at times. And then I realized, it's not fair to the child, it's not his fault. So it took me time. He finally arrived. He finally got there. But there were times which were really trying times at times. So yes, let's say cooking was one part of it. Therapy was another. I would take him to the garden. There were times I would go to my friend's place with him, because I also wanted him to get to see other people and not keep him within the confines of the house. So of course we went out a lot. We even traveled with him when he was younger. Whenever Devin would have time, he would come, spend a lot of time with him. Another thing she always insisted, Shubhangi Olak, was that you can't be the only person talking to him and doing therapy. Otherwise, he will only respond to you. You have to have other people in his life who talk to him, have him respond to them. So if she would say, she would go and say, give me the pen. And she would say, give me the pen. And if you pick up something else instead of the pen, she would just withdraw her hand. This child would know that I'm giving something wrong. So have him do it with somebody else also, like your husband on Saturdays, Sundays. If your parents come over, have them do a bit of therapy. But you know, here what happens is the way you do your therapy, you really have to work out the nitty-gritties and really have them sit down and understand why, how, and how exactly to do it, otherwise it can go wrong. You know, so a simple task like, you know, I would put these picture cards and I would, you know, you used to get those fun school cards, matching cards. I'd put those cards and I would say, give me kite, give me jug, give me moon. And you had to pick it in the exact order. If you would pick up the moon first, I had to withdraw my hand. So this was also building on his memory, you know, giving 3 things in a particular sequence. And then we progress from there to give me something that you fly during Sankrant, or something that you store water in, and something that you see in the night sky. So the description, and you would say, oh, if she's saying that, then it's the moon. If this is the jug. If we are talking about the kite, that way. A lot of kids on the spectrum, they do not have peripheral vision. You know, when I say peripheral, like right now you're looking at me, but in your periphery, you know, there's a curtain here, there's a wall there, you know, there's something here, right? Around you. So if this thing is here, and if you say, give me the phone, he wouldn't know where it is unless he turned his head, and he won't turn his head. So you have to build in. You know, with autism, everything has to be built in by design, not by default. So speech doesn't come by default. Peripheral vision doesn't come by default. You know, remembering things does not come by default. She would give him activities like that. Jump 5 times, knock on the door, clap 2 times, and pull your nose. So you have to quickly do those in the same sequence and remember how many times. So that was working on the memory, understanding, and acting,
Motor skills.
and also understanding how many times, the count of it.
How much time did it take for him to do this from the time that she first suggested it?
It took years, right? So he was 3. By the time he was 7, he was able to do almost everything. I mean, teaching him little things like in, out, between, under, over, through, through the straw, by the car. So I would say, where is Baba going? He would say, by the office. How is he going to the car? So then, working on that aspect. So something that mothers take a lot for granted कि बच्चा कितना बड़बड़ करता है, बहुत ज़्यादा बात करता है, and I'm like, they have no idea what it's like for a mother whose child is non-verbal,
Wow.
So I say your child is talking, you should be happy,
Wow.
because for me every small instance was a triumph. It was a delight. Oh, today he's learned this. Oh, today he can say this. Today he can say that. I remember when I was pregnant with Agastya, and I don't know, I feel like eating dahi vada, so I made dahi vada, and I made it for four of my friends too. I was pretty tired at the end of the day, and my Soham comes and says, "Can you make pasta for me? I really want to eat." He said, "I want to eat pasta." Now for me it was a big thing. I want to eat pasta. He's told me he wants to eat pasta.
Specific.
Now he's speaking, so I must reward him. So I made it, and I said, "Look, I'm very tired. Just eat it carefully and don't drop anything." And Murphy's law, he dropped it. He dropped it, and everything splattered on the wall, on the floor, and I was very upset. And I thought I was going to really scream at him because I was really tired. And for a moment, I just held myself back, and I said, "Let me just go into my room and close the door." I gave him a very bad look, and I went into the room, but I didn't scream at him. And he looked very contrite and very guilty. After 10 minutes, I came back. This little chap, he was just 4.5, 5, close to 5. He had wiped the entire floor, cleaned up the entire mess. My God, Atul, it brought tears to my eyes, and I was like mentally thanking myself I didn't scream at this child. He was such an angel. He just knew what he had to do, So he's delighted in me. He's delighted us in so many different ways. It's hard to, forget these things. Right?
But it also means that from the time that, I'm just analyzing it, looking at it a little differently. From the time when he was 18 and when you identified it, to say 4.5, which is like 3 years, he was actually understanding and analyzing and being action oriented about what to do.
Yeah, but it's all thanks to Shubhangi Alok, as I said again,
exactly.
Because I don't think I could have moved that far and that rapidly without him.
But isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
Like I'm sure that there are, if like 8 out of 10 kids, if you told them what the hell have you done, they're not going to clean up.
Yeah.
They are going to throw their own tantrum and go in their own rooms. You can go to your room.
No, unless you are a very strict disciplinarian and they do it because they have to do it.
Yeah, but that's like, I'm saying that.
Like I had not told him to clean it up, right?
Yeah.
He just took some tissues.
But I'm saying 6 out of 10 kids would still throw a tantrum and do it, So, it's something where your child, where from the time that you're saying that he was not even responding to anything.
Yeah.
And in 3 years, this is a huge development. This is almost like a very empathy. It's empathy driven, plus it's pretty much normal behavior. It's like he knows what to do. He's thinking through it. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yes. He's thinking through. That's very important.
So did you try very hard?
No. I was very overwhelmed. I didn't cry. I'm not a very.
I think you cried. You're lying.
No, I don't think so. It was just a happiness mixed with a lot of feeling of being very overwhelmed.
Yeah.
That he did it.
I loved this story, but
and I've seen a lot of compassion in him as a child.
No,
right
exactly.
I sometimes also feel that when a certain faculty is not developed, some other faculties emerge.
Right.
Like I have always seen him give a helping hand to someone who's just fallen down, saying, "Are you okay? Can I get you water?" That was later when he became verbal, but he would just go and give him a hand, pick him up. So he has always been a very compassionate child, or as a human being, very, very compassionate person, and extremely forgiving. Today if I have to give him a dressing down on something, he'll get upset, He might not talk to me for about 2-3 minutes. He'll say, I'm sorry. Can you forgive me, please? I'm sorry. But he'll never hold it against me or them, no matter what. Unlike the younger one who's a motor mouth, and he will give his own reason about why he is right. But yeah, that's what I meant.
Wow. So after that, the journey, once you were 6, the journey has been a little more smooth than
Much
before.
smoother, because like she correctly told Dr. Alak, that once you cross a certain threshold with the speech and language, this journey will really it will open up more avenues. And that exactly is what happened. That's exactly what happened. So the key to these kind of things is early detection and early intervention,
Right.
always. And to add one more part is knowing who to go to. It can't be just any therapist around the corner. If it's somewhere where you really need to travel a bit, but it's worth your while, then you must go there. You don't do therapy just for the sake of therapy, and you have to be completely invested. That is just a facilitator you're going to, who's going to teach you. You have to walk through. He'll just show you the door. You have to walk through.
How did he come across swimming? I mean, how did you realize that he's...
Because, when we would travel to Goa or somewhere, we would get to the swimming pool, and he showed that fascination. There was a time he was petrified of water. He would not even want to wet his feet at the beach. There's a picture of me holding him, trying to put him in the water, and he's pulling up his legs. And now he's a complete water baby. I think he's taken after me. I love swimming. So, and I thought swimming was a complete sport, complete sport in itself, full exercise, proper exercise, impact-free and beneficial in so many ways. And the moment we learnt about her, we said, why not? Let's try out. And he was just 8 months into swimming. Now this is his December, January, February, March, April. This is 13th month with Aarti Pradhan. But when he was 8 months into swimming, all the other kids had already completed their 7th or 8th year with her. And they did this mega event where they swam from Alibag to Gateway.
Yes.
In 9 hours, 33 kilometers. It was a relay. But Soham was selected, and we were really happy. And he did that. And there was a time when he was swimming against the current, and it was so difficult. He could not just move ahead. He was caught. And then he got a stitch in his ribs. It started hurting very badly. And we actually thought he was going to give up, because he started swimming just with one arm. And one of the best friend that he has now, Apurva, and his twin brother, Atharva, they kept urging him on. They said, Soham, you're not going to give up. Then the entire team was, Soham, no giving up. And somebody was playing the harmonica for him. Somebody said, you are not going to give up. You have promised me 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes karte uska pura kara liya. And then he finally did it. The moment he did it, they pulled him on board. Somebody was rubbing his back. Somebody was covering him with a blanket. Somebody was making him rinse his mouth. It's like a big family. They have there now. Very close-knit, very cohesive unit.
Wow.
So,
Now, here's something which they even told me that I think it gives, your husband said, and it gives an insight into how committed you were. And we've already discussed this, and you were far more outgoing and far, what kind of a person you were before this thing happened. I mean, it was actually whatever had to happen, happened. And Soham came into your lives, and you were detected and all that. And he said once he had called some friends over, 3-4, some friends over, and you were pissed with him. I mean, and you said that I'm never going to forgive you because you took 3 hours of my away from Soham's therapy.
yeah.
What is that story? I mean,
I had to go to Dr. Shubhangi Aulak, I guess.
so you're palpitating and you're not done your homework.
I mean, she was really something, a real force to reckon with. Really, I mean.
She's still there, right?
She's moved to Vashi now. She practices in Vashi. She doesn't take kids beyond the 6th year of age because it's not possible to work on them that late. She takes kids who are pretty young, 2, 2.5, 3, and then she starts from there. So,
What Yeah, so tell me the story first. So what, do you remember
No,
this?
because I remember. I even remember who was going to come now that you mentioned it. And it's not that I don't like those people and all that, but that time it was some kind of a, I don't know. It was a focus. It was like I can't move away from it. I was literally eating, as I said, I was eating, drinking, breathing. So even when he went to grade 4 and 5, I had this notebook by my side. And I would get up in the middle of the night and I said, oh, he did not understand the concept. I started developing my own ways of teaching him things and concepts. So anyway, coming back to that story, I was upset because I had told Devin that I need to do this much in a particular day. There's no space for me to do anything else. Those people were going to be in a town after a long time. He wanted to come, not his fault. But for me, it was a matter of saying, oh my God, this child is going to miss 3 hours of therapy. For me, it was that complete one-track mind. कि भी यही करना है और कुछ नहीं है लाइफ में,
कुछ है ही नहीं मेरी life
कुछ है ही नहीं लाइफ में, तो करना ही है, कुछ भी करके करना ही है. So that way, but that's okay.
But this never happened again. I guess Devin never had the balls to do it again in his life.
Yeah.
How do you look at all this as? How do you look at this? I mean, do you look at it as sacrifices made?
No.
Because you think when Devin said to me that it has also shaped you as parents, So how do you look at it? I mean, that statement by itself.
See, when I say it shaped us as parents, it's all again Soham, because as I said, it taught us so many virtues. When I say virtues, like patience, being forgiving. Being forgiving is very important in life, I think. A lot of us hold on to a lot of grudges. It just creates a lot of bitterness inside. It doesn't go away. But he taught us real forgiveness, And the fact that, because, I also believe is when you give of yourself to the child, if it instills confidence in him, it makes him very happy. Confidence creates that happiness. When we told Soham that he had autism and what it meant, the way it was relayed was in such a way that it said that this is your strength, not a weakness. I don't know, have you been to this restaurant in Powai? They even have branches called Madira and Mime. Okay. Madira and Mime is this restaurant which only hires people who are auditorily challenged and speech challenged. They can't speak, they can't hear. Japan Matan Mukani Badhir in Marathi, they are that. They wear these t-shirts, okay? They have this t-shirt which says, sign language is my superpower, what is yours? Okay? And all their menu, the every item has a specific hand sign. So you have to show that and then they get that for you. So I thought, look at the way they've turned this around for these people. One is they have got a respectable job. Even during COVID, when the restaurant was shutting down, the entire Powai Residents Welfare Association, they pitched in money and made sure that these people were not fired.
The Hiranandani Association.
Yeah. So that really created an impression which said that sign language is my superpower, what is yours? So we said, how do we turn these things into strengths? So we, in fact, Vibha Krishnamurthy asked me, she said, have you ever told Som that he's autistic? I said, not in clear terms, we haven't. She said, it's high time you tell, because one of her patients came to her when he was 25 and said to her that, I wish my parents had told me that I had autism when I was a child. It would have made my life much more easier. Because there were times people looked at me differently and I didn't know why. And then it stuck that, it made so much sense telling this to your child, but then what do you convey and how you convey makes again a lot of difference. So how do you tell him that you have autism? So what is autism? Or you say that every person has strengths and every person has certain challenges that he tries to overcome. You are great at running, somebody else is not. Somebody else is great at giving a speech, you might not be it. But you have your own strengths. So autism is not a weakness. So in fact, this is a question that came from Soham to me and said that in Nagpur, when I go to play, all these people speak in Marathi. And they say, have you come from the US? Because you only speak in English and you have this accent. So what do I tell them? I said, they won't even understand it. You can tell them when I was born, I didn't speak the way other kids spoke. I took a little longer time to speak. It's difficult for me to grasp other languages, but this is a language I'm good at. That's it. But look them in the eye and tell them. You don't have to feel ashamed.
Right.
You have a lot of skills which other kids don't.
Right.
So revel in that. So now he's not worried. He doesn't care.
Because he's
And-
completely
and-
aware.
Yeah, of course he's aware. And I only told him, having said that, there will be people who will try to mock you, ridicule you. You will have to have a thick skin if you have to survive in this world. You just have to ignore. So yesterday he came back and he said that there's this particular guy who keeps shouting at me. I've just learned how to ignore and play my game. I said, wonderful. Sometimes I feel that, after a certain level, you also have to let kids find their own way and deal with their own insecurities, their own problems. Otherwise, they'll never grow. If I keep intervening.
Right. They have to negotiate.
You have to find their own. I mean, after you're gone, then what? You know.
So, what Devin wanted to, say is that, because when I said that we can do it with Deepti, and he said that, yeah, you should do it because I want others to learn from my mistakes. My mistake was that I identified it late, and that is very important that people understand it. So, we'll try to just now, wrap it up somewhere. What would be your major advice to parents? Any parent, even if when a child is born, because it's very important to identify it as early as possible. So identify whether your child is autistic or whether he has Downs, or whatever might it be. So, what would be your advice? 1 to 10, whatever.
First of all, keep a track of the developmental milestones. I mean, take for all the regular checks that you need to do. Don't skip any of the checks, especially between the second and third year, because autism is usually detected only after the second year. It never gets detected at the first year or between the first year and second year, rarely so. In my case, I thought there was something amiss. Now, chances are, had I gone that time, it might not have been labeled as autism, but they would have said, okay, we need to do more tests after a while or whatever. But when you know there's something amiss, then quickly get it shown. You feel that it's not the way your child should be behaving when you look at other kids. So get it checked out. That's one. Secondly, God forbid, but if something gets detected, acceptance is again a very personal thing. I don't know. I can't tell people that just accept it there and then. It's again a phase, There's some grief, there's anger, there's some kind of a blame game that's happening inside your mind. Get over it. Talk to yourself, whatever it takes, but talk to a counselor, whatever. But acceptance is the biggest thing that you have to have in your mind if your child has any kind of a neurological issue. You have to help yourself, as I said. Otherwise, you can't be, because that's what they do, right? In airlines, when there's turbulence, they say that you have to wear your oxygen mask first, and then only you can put it on your child.
Right.
If you faint, then what is going to happen to your child? So you have to take care of yourself. That's the second part of it. And the moment you know that something has been detected, just move ahead with the intervention. It will take time for you to get over that grief, maybe, or the fact that your child has this condition. But the moment you start working parallelly, the moment there's some progress, these things then don't matter, because then you see your child overriding all these challenges. And at the right time, speak to your child about it. Let him know that it is a strength, not his weakness. But having said that, Atul, it's easy for me to say this from the space I am in. I mean, I know there are parents who have children who are really debilitated. They are on the extreme. I mean, I know somebody, not my friend, but one of Devin's friends, someone, whose child is perhaps 14 and still wears diapers. As it's a spectrum disorder, everything is not possible. But whatever you can do it wholeheartedly.
Right.
Go ahead with it, You can't do everything, but whatever you can do, make it happen. Don't restrict, don't curtail the child's ability to do certain things just because you feel bad that he will not be able to do those other things. There are many other things your child will surprise you with.
Wow. That's long and short of it.
Yeah. And of course, go to the right therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
That's-
can't
I
be
think
just
that's
anybody.
very
Yeah.
important.
Very,
Someone
very
who teaches
important.
you
Yeah,
to be a therapist.
You are the therapist.
Yeah.
The
So someone who also understands that.
Yeah.
That-
And as a father also, I feel that it's important to take a part in the entire journey. Right?
Right.
You both have given birth to it. It's not just the mother. And just because you're earning the bread and butter doesn't absolve you from that responsibility of taking part in this. You might not be able to give you 100%, but you can at least give you 50%. If you can't do the therapy, at least be supportive and give a lot of positivity to your child. The child should feel that it's okay. He's, no matter what, he will not be judged by his family. He's in a safe space.
Right.
Nobody can hurt him. Nobody can judge him. And the family will not allow anybody else to judge him. That will propel him even further. These kids are emotionally very, very perceptive. Very perceptive. Like when Soham comes and he looks at me, anything wrong? You don't look okay. So he knows.
Cool. And what message would you like to give to Soham? I mean, if he ever listens to this, and what message would you like to tell him? What would you like to tell him? Now that he's 16, 15?
He's turning 16 day after.
Yeah. So what is the message that you give to your 16-year-old?
Go full steam ahead. Don't let anything stop you.
And to your younger one, Agastya?
Younger one is very different. Very different. He wants to be an immunologist. He wants to settle in Japan.
He wants to be an immunologist.
Yeah.
At 11, he is telling you
He
wants-
told me at 8. He's now 10. And he's learning the hiragana script and writing it down 10 times. Because of him, we are taking a trip to Japan this year and not Europe, which we wanted
Okay.
to. Because now he's learning karate, he's learning books on immunology, then...
He's 11 years old, right?
He's 10. He's reading books on immunology. Then he even was... I sent you one of those episodes of the podcast, right? How bacteria are used in mining. That was not something he wanted to speak about, but that was a topic he got, but he spoke about it. And he's very particular about what he wants to do and where he wants to go.
So what's your message?
Go full steam ahead again for him, but I think for him, I think he needs to be a little more focused, and he needs to know that he'll really have to work hard towards whatever he's envisioning for himself. Yeah.
And what's that one thing that you'd like to tell your husband of 17 years after that India habitat meeting? What is it that you'd like to tell him? Because he's also somewhere, I think, passed through a journey.
He can never criticize my choices because I selected him.
Anymore. So that's your final thing. You can't criticize me anymore. It's done. It's a done deal now.
No, he's been the true pillar. He's been my rock. Absolutely. Once the autism was diagnosed, when I say he was on board, he was like, as much as I was doing, as much as he could from his end, he would take Soham by local train from Thane, Mahim, Dadar, Matunga, wherever, and he would have him identify each station, each road. And as I said, at Agastya, Soham used to just run amok, right? Anywhere. He would not be bothered whether his father or mom are around or not. For as long as 2 or 3 hours, he wouldn't be bothered. So he would take him to this ITC Maratha or Taj, Land's End, and he would just leave him there. And he would just sit in the coffee shop and observe him, what he does. He would just be hidden from the view. This child would keep roaming around the entire premises here, there, not bothering about anybody, anything, anywhere, not wondering where his father is. After 2 years, he would feel 2 hours. He would feel hungry. Then he would start looking around. Then he would say "Baba" slowly or something. Then Devan would show himself. Then he started doing this on a very regular basis. Every weekend he would do this. Slowly that time came down from 2 hours to 1 hour 40 minutes, 1.5 hours, 1 hour, half
Wow.
hour, 15 minutes,
Wow.
5 minutes, 1 minute. And the moment he wouldn't sit even he would panic and say, "Baba."
Wow.
Then one day he said, "Baba," he said, "why didn't you call me?" I said, "I said." He said, "You have to shout louder, na? How will I hear?" Then he realized that he had to shout louder for somebody to hear him.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we realized more than academics, more than anything else, all what these children also need is life skills. Life skills. Can you travel alone? Can you buy things? Can you cross the road?
Right.
Can you call for help? Do you know your address, your phone number? Do you know there's this boy called Tarun, Atul? I don't know if you heard of him. It made quite a lot of news recently. This is, I think, it's been about more than a year back now. He was autistic and he saw some procession outside. They were singing and dancing. He went dancing with them. He reached CST and then he realized that he was not on his home turf.
From where?
From South Bombay se kahin se, I don't know exactly.
But a long
Nearby.
distance that he's traveled with them without realizing.
I went and then he got kind of lost, right? So one of the CRPF officials, no, not CRPF, sorry, the railway officials, he got irritated with this boy because he wanted to communicate, he wanted water and he couldn't speak. So he made him board some random train and that boy is till date not been found.
Oh my God.
He has not been found till date. I personally went to the Powai police station and put his posters there, talked to them and told them कि ऐसा ऐसा हुआ है. A lot of people from the Forum for Autism, a lot of parents went looking in local trains every day, buses every day to see if they could find him. It came on the news, it came in the newspaper. And that person who did that was never really put behind bars. He could have just simply handed him to the station master or to the police.
Yeah.
17-year-old, no? That's why I said
because
life
CCTV
skills
is-
like knowing your address, your blood group is also important, your name, your father's name, your phone number. Like for example, now Soham can go for his dental appointment alone. He goes. I have given him that small dabba phone. One of the other things that I make him do is I go to a restaurant, make him order food. The other day I went to IKEA. I said, go to the restaurant, this is the money, just make sure you got all the change, order what you want. He did that. So slowly, you have to widen the circle, the radius of their independence, what they can, what they can't do, exercise their choices, So
Somebody
he knows
was swimming-
that if he's using my credit card, like I've gone to Nature's Basket, I said, use my credit card, this is my PIN. So he's looking like that, making sure nobody's looking at the PIN and just calculating if the bill is correct or not. All these things are very, very integral, very essential. Academics or not, wo ho jayega. But life skills is the most integral.
Yeah, even otherwise, I think. in
Even
life.
otherwise, today kids,
I mean,
they have everything
I
on a
have very
platter, they don't
little,
know
yeah.
how to buy bhaji.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually studied a lot, so I feel that academics beyond a point. I mean, you don't use most of
You
it. I
don't
mean, you
know.
should know everything. I mean,
Yeah,
that's very
yeah,
important.
yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
saying that nowadays with the internet and so much of learning that you can have by
Right.
itself free,
Right.
you actually don't need to go to school and college and what. If you want to
Correct.
if you want a job, then yes, like because you've done an MBA, then you want to do a proper job, then it's okay. But otherwise, I mean, these are just. But it was wonderful to talk with you and, and
Same here.
understand.
I'm
what
glad
your
I could
journey
share
was.
some nuggets which, the listeners can find useful. Those who actually need this information, really.
No, I think a lot of people need this,
Yeah.
irrespective of whether the child is autistic or not, because it also sensitizes you to other people's children. I mean, to an autistic child, like someone like Tarun that you said.
Yeah.
That maybe somebody hears this and the next time he sees a child like that, he just remembers this and doesn't behave like that. That's a simple thing.
No, so
that
my
can happen.
current, right in between, I was working with this portal called parentune.com where I helped them set up an autism vertical where we created a lot of content on it and all that. And I did my advanced diploma in counseling psychology when Agastya was, Soham was around 6 years old actually. So that is something, as I said, I wanted to get into psychology, so I got into that, and now my focus is working with parents, counseling parents in terms of acceptance,
Right.
and knowing the path ahead. And sharing a lot of resources, sharing a lot of techniques that I have developed to build certain skills in Soham. Lot of them. With household objects. You don't even need any fancy equipment. You can do so many things with household objects for therapy.
So you're now trying to give it back.
I want to give it back. I want to guide those parents to the right therapist. Tell them about my journey or other journeys which are inspirational, just like mine, so that they are not the only one in the sea. A lot of people out there. There are endless possibilities about where they can go, what they can do.
Wow. Amazing. I think I'll wrap it here. And since we talked about, superpowers, I think your superpower has been to deal with your child's autism and deal it and get him into the real world.
Yeah, it's also about telling him that if it's autism, so be it. It's your strength. It's your strength.
It's your strength.
Treat it as your strength. There are things you can do. There are things you perceive that the other can't.
Right. So thank you so much, and it's been wonderful talking with you, and thank you so much for this, because it has also sensitized me a little and made me a little more wiser, So thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome. I enjoyed being here.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I drop a new episode every Friday night at around 10 p.m. I will also end this and every episode by recommending a film or a web series. But before that, here is a small message on how you can help to keep this podcast alive and growing. This episode is free and we intend to keep it that way. But it does take a lot of time, money and effort to produce the show. We research, write, record and edit before we finally present it to you. So if you wish to support our effort, you can help us produce the show by contributing any amount you wish on our website, conversationswithatul.com. Please note that the word conversations is plural with an S. So do visit conversationswithatul.com. Since we are talking about autism, here is my film record. The film I recommend today is the Chinese-Hong Kong drama film Ocean Heaven, starring superstar Jet Li. Ocean Heaven tells the tale of a terminally ill father trying to teach his autistic son the necessary life skills to survive in the real world before passing on. Ocean Heaven rates a super 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. Do watch if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter by following my Twitter handle Atul Deshpande, spelled as ATULTAISHETE. Also, do visit my website Conversations, that is Conversations plural with an S. The complete website address is conversationswithatul.com. So see you next Friday at 10 p.m. with a different guest, a new episode and a fresh conversation right here on Conversations with Atul. Have a rocking fun week and stay safe. Thank you.